we're diving right into it. You might notice that there is on YouTube no special effects today, no good filters. The PDF almost looks like a PDF rather than my fancy dumb shit that I usually have things set up in. That's how this is going to go today. That's just how this is going to go today. And I don't have any other sort of cool shit to argue about. Let me make sure I'm sharing outwards. Virtual camera. Make sure that the new Discord doesn't crash my OBS. Please don't crash my OBS. Boop. There, good. Did not crash OBS. And then I've got it shared here. Boom. Okay. I tend to recommend everyone at one point or another do what I did, which is Windows 11, especially modern. But I go through a lot of shit. I install 90 versions of fucking Python. I have all kinds of dumb shit running in the background. I overinstall programs. But at some point, Windows is just a bloated mess, and it is what it is. Do you know the easiest way to get that?
Sorry for interrupting. I was just saying a lot of it is like Copilot shit takes up a lot of like CPU from what I know. And they just like built.
I wish it was only that. It is, the AI installation of it is awful. But it just builds up over time. And if you're like a really heavy Windows user, which I really am, I abuse it. I install everything. I'm always trying stuff.
The 9 millionth version of Juice on my Mac right now. I get you.
Macs are great because they at least have cron jobs running. Windows does not do the same shit. So the only way to really clean up is a full refresh, which is a deletion of all programs and full reinstall of Windows.
Yep.
I try to do it once a year. I recommend everyone do it. It's a pain in the ass, though, as you can guess. For example, this experience that you're watching. Basically.
Also, there's two tools also that help with data and hard drive overflooding, which can cause a lot of like computer slowdown. Windeer tool and a much more readable version of Windeer tool called Space Sniffer, which is what I use on Windows. It's very good. It just kind of shows you everything that's on your computer in colored blocks.
Windeer Stat and Directory Tree is the other one I love using because it does like visualizes it really nicely. Space Monster is like Space Monger used to be my favorite, and then it stopped working with Windows because why the fuck not? Probably because I liked it. I'm assuming someone went, "Oh, Brooks likes this. We should cancel it."
It do be like that.
It seems to. We are talking about capitalism today. We are continuing. Let me just do the intro. I have to do it. Hello, and welcome to the Quarantine Collective's ongoing forever reading of Anti-Oedipus. We're almost finished with our third reading through of the book as we make our way through the final section of the final chapter, as we get through the last bits of what schizoanalysis is. We're going to go back and redo a paragraph from last week. Not redo, I shouldn't say redo, but we're going to do it over because this section is where everything is coming together. It's one of the things that makes Anti-Oedipus challenging to say the least. It does the normal thing. Hey, we're putting forward a bunch of propositions, but every section itself seems to be making arguments and creating new concepts. And so every section kind of comes together itself very nicely. But at the end of the entire book, they're tying everything back together. And the sort of underlying nightmare of that is that as everything comes together, and it does, the underlying frustration of a lot of people who read this, and we've been seeing it, I've been noticing it in chat here, a couple of comments, chat in YouTube. This is not the easiest section, to say the least. And so we're going to go back, we're going to redo this last paragraph. This one right here, nice and simple. Everything in the system is insane. Because it's worth going over some of the parts that tie into a few of the other chapters and making a little bit of a deeper dive into those things. I think I would phrase it that way. Why is my... I don't know why I got that noise. All right. So, as we go, please don't hesitate to let me know, hey, this isn't great. I disagree with this. I'm not sure about this. All those fun things. Always, always kind of the fucking point. Let me make sure I've got all my windows up so that way I can at least follow you, what you guys are doing. Let's give it a fucking shot. All right. Everything in the system is insane. This is because the capitalist machine thrives on decoded and deterritorialized flux. It decodes and deterritorializes them still more, but while causing them to pass into an axiomatic apparatus that combines them, and at the points of combination produces pseudo-codes and artificial reterritorializations. It is in this sense that the capitalist axiomatic cannot but give rise to new territorialities and revive a new despotic Urstaat. Did I say despotic Urstaat? Chicken, not stirred. Stirred. The great mutant flux of capital is pure deterritorialization, but it performs an equivalent reterritorialization when converted into a reflux of a means of payment. The third world is deterritorialized in relation to the center of capitalism, but belongs to capitalism, being a pure peripheral territoriality of capitalism. The system teems with preconscious investments of class and of interests, and capitalists first have an interest in capitalism. A statement as commonplace as this is made for another purpose. Capitalists have an interest in capitalism only through the tapping of profits that they extract from it. But no matter how large the extraction of profits, it does not define capitalism. And for what does define capitalism and what conditions profit, theirs is an investment of desire whose nature, unconscious libidinal, is altogether different, and is not simply explained by the conditioned profits, but on the contrary itself explains that a small-time capitalist with no great profits or hopes fully maintains the entirety of his libidinal investments. The libido investing the great flux that is not convertible as such, not appropriated as such, non-possession and non-wealth, in the words of Bernard Schmidt, who among modern economists has for us the incomparable advantage of offering a delirious interpretation of an unequivocally delirious economic system. At least he goes all the way. In short, a truly unconscious libido, a disinterested love. This machine is fantastic. So we open. And again, this is following a very particular thing that they're talking about. And this opening sentence is not something that they're doing to be exaggerative or over the line or like just, multiply state something in order to make emphasis. That's not what they're doing here. Everything in the system is insane. They're making a statement flatly. This is not like an exciting version of it. It's like everything's crazy here. It's like, no. Everything in capitalism is insane. It's structurally incoherent. And this is not an accident that comes about from, hey, this version of capitalism's weird, man. Oh, look, we're in a time where, I don't know, corporatism is ruling. That's awful. It's not true capitalism. Capitalism's not crazy. This time it's no. The capitalist socius operates fundamentally in a way that develops an insanity. And the double movement it makes is that it liberates the flux of desire, the flux of impulses, the how to put it, the flux of passions, the preconscious sort of libidinal structure of things, right? It liberates flux. The rate of change itself, I'll get into this because this is a whole fucking thing. But the rate of change itself of things that are happening, but it frees that from these territorialized despotic codes, from the coded systems of old. Once upon a time, man and woman had particular codes that were sort of socially shared or set on high from a king or a god or godhead or whatever. Capitalism destroys that. It eliminates that, liberating this flux, right? But it immediately recaptures that flux again. And it does so in a system that is axiomatic. Codes are different than axioms by a gigantic margin. They're fundamentally functionally different. And it's a distinction that really comes through, in Marxist anthropology, Godelier, Strauss, a lot of anthropology. It's not just Marx. It's the idea of codes. Codes socially are things that are qualitative. They are meaningful relations of how people get together. Think of how we would talk about the word family, what family means. It means nothing. Family is like a fucking meaningless term. It's at this point, it's the running gag of like Star Wars or Disney films or Marvel films is that fucking joke of, but really it's all about family. What the fuck? Oh, you choose your family, or you don't choose your family. Family is this thing that doesn't really itself have meaning these days. It used to just have its own simplified qualitative meaning. Family was what it was, and that's it. Coded systems operate different. Axiomatic systems work through quantitative abstract operations. This is set theory. For any of you who've taken a level of, I don't even know what version of math it is these days, where you'd be learning this. But set theory is the basic way that before things even exist, there is an axiom at the beginning of a set that determines what goes into that set. This is what the axiomatic system they're talking about is, that it sorts the flux of desire, the fundamental flux of desire itself, into these abstract quantitative operations. And it does so through conjugation, systematically combining decoded flux. And these points of conjugation, these places where this happens, this axiomatic that creates these conjugation points, this generates pseudo codes. And pseudo is an important phrasing here. They're pseudo codes. They have factitious meaning. They're fictional. They're artificial. They exist in only this sort of abstract space. Again, different than codes. Codes came about through interactions with the body directly, or social systems, or the despot on high that would separate. But conjugation, as part of capitalism and the axiomatic system, creates different points that these pseudo codes, these artificial reterritorializations, stabilize into, and stabilize the flux into. The insanity that they're talking about is that fundamentally capitalism relies on the decoded flux that can't remain decoded. So there's always got to be new territories, new pseudo-territories, new codes, new pseudo-codes that can contain this flux. As the axiomatics are shown not to be enough, it has to create another one. It doesn't restore the codes of old. This is what conservatives, Republicans, all of them are very attached to, this idea that we can get back to those things. We can't. We can restore fictitious versions of them, but the qualitative, meaningful nature of those things is gone. Pseudocodes don't have that. They're simulacra of those codes, and they are always subordinated to this quantitative operation of capital. This fundamentally is what the entire book is about. This is why I wanted to go back over this paragraph. It's a lot. It's so much. This is so much. But and this is just like this opening little bit here, because this is the thing that they've been going through. All of chapter 3 is about how humanity is developed through this anarcho-communist, code-based, primitive territorial system where the territory and codes were more or less emergent from our direct interactions with the earth and with each other. They worked fundamentally differently than they do now. And again, a lot of anthropology backs this up. But when you think about the king on high, again, fundamentally different. It's an evolution of, or a change in that social system, where it's not the codes that we all kind of share or the territory that we all, collectively understand, but instead the king on high, who is both territory and code maker, who overcodes, who's somehow able to determine our lineage, our lives, utilizing brutal political power and really the cheapness of our own lives and our own sort of existence. We get sorted by the king, by God, into various capacities, and we just are that. Capitalism shifts that, breaking down all of that and freeing the flux that was captured by those systems. But it doesn't free it into lines of flight that can kind of go anywhere. It doesn't do any of that. Instead, it creates these axiomatics fundamentally that sort of auto-structure the flux as it comes to be into these systemic pseudocodes and reterritorializations. So they say, and it's why they say, in this sense, the capitalist axiomatic cannot but give rise to new territorialities, revive a new despotic Urstaat. This is the pseudocodes, the pseudo-territorialities. It doesn't have the ability but to do that. The phrase Urstaat is, again, chapter 3, the primordial state, the primal state, this apparatus of organization that Wittfogel talks about in Oriental Despotism. The thing that is coming about is a new despotic Urstaat, a new territoriality. The axiomatics structural necessity exists to produce these things. And this is why capitalism's always bringing about state forms of one type or another. It doesn't give a fuck about like the specific formation. Capitalism has never cared about, oh no, wait, this is a proper republic or a proper democracy, or this is a communist government. Oh, okay, this is totalitarian. Oh, wow. Like capitalism doesn't give a fuck. The organization of the system produces the necessity for why this despotic state is continually being founded on the destruction of previous systems. The modern state as we have it today, which is exceptionally managerial and bureaucratic, is not as a territorial state, which didn't really happen in that way, or despotic in the classical sense of having like the single, dear leader on top, despite how many dear leaders may want to pretend that way. There's awareness that this is not the case. The reason this happens is because the state is, as part of capital in the system, overall, the regulator of decoded flux. It is immanent to the field of the decoded flux. The state is part and parcel of all of our experiences, not a king on high, far away, who issues edicts that have a latency to get to us, as they used to. Kafka has the story of the guy, it's a fiction story, but probably happened, it makes sense that it would happen, a guy wandering through China where they have pictures and paintings of their emperor, and they do everything the emperor says, but the emperor's been dead for 50 years. No one just told this town, because it takes a while for information to travel before the internet and phone and all of that. That latency doesn't exist for capital. Capital is within desire. It's right up against it. It's right there. And so this field of decoded flux has it doing it immediately, imminently. This is where the state sort of exists for us. But this imminent regulatory function, it reproduces despotic structures And the despotic structures are the internal limit of the axiomatic. This is important phrasing, by the way. We'll be getting to, but it's important phrasing. The immanent regulatory function that is created as we grow and as we exist, as the axiomatics control and systematize and put everything in place, that thing is the internal limits of the axiomatic of capital. So the Urstadt here isn't really about the state, the America and the government with Trump and all that. It's not really just about that. It's different. It's identical to. There's a diagrammatic similarity to these things because we're talking about bureaucracy, technocracy, regulatory systems that manage this decoded flux. The decoded Urstadt is a different beast. The despotic Urstadt works through this overcoding of the territorial flux. The territorial flux is operant through the direct sort of consumption of things and the inscribing in bodies, right? So if we've got the Urstadt that operates on the overcoding territorial flux, operates through on that. The capitalist state operates through regulating and axiomatizing the decoded flux itself. So capitalism has this fucked up paradox built into it. It uses the state forms that exist with it precisely to affect and build reterritorializations that contain deterritorializing movements. That's its entire existence, is to sort of do that. They have the phrase in here. It's the next sentence, but it's the great mutant flow of capital. The great mutant flow of capital is pure deterritorialization, but it performs an equivalent reterritorialization when converted into a reflux of means of payment. Anyone here read Marx? MCM, CMC kind of shit? They're pulling through a lot of authors here, but Marx is, to say slightly, coming through here. They're arguing at this point, hey, we can talk about and show this is how insane capitalism, this dual aspect exists that we're talking about. We can actually do that through monetary theory itself. And that's the great mutant flux of capital is pure deterritorialization, but it performs an equivalent reterritorialization, right? Reterritorialization when converted into a reflux of means of payment. Capital flux, again, immanent capital flux, represents a pure deterritorialization. It's capital, the flux of capital is itself like limitless. There's no end to it. It's not really a convertible thing. You can't appropriate it directly. Schmidt's term for this is creation ex nihilo, made of nothing. Made of nothing. Banks have the ability to print money. Central banks have been doing this for a very long time. Less long time for Deleuze, but we've had literally twice as much time. So hopefully you're kind of aware that central banks print money. But they are able to do that in a really weird way. It's from nothing. But this flux that we're talking about here necessarily converts into reflux when it enters income streams, purchasing powers, and means of payment. This asymmetry is crucial. The asymmetry is the big thrust here. Capital flux is true economic power, a deterritorialized potentiality. The reflux is purchasing power as income. So it's reterritorialized distribution, actualized potential. The conversion is equivalent. I'm putting in giant fucking air quotes if you aren't watching me. Big fucking air quotes. It's equivalent. Look, American people made $3.6 billion last month in wages. Yes. $3.6 billion in wages. Oh my, yes, $3.6 billion in wages. That's just as much, Elon Musk made $3.6 billion last month as well. It's the same thing. Except it's not. The whole thing is, this is like the asymmetrical bullshit, right? The conversion that's happening here, where the flux is turned into this capturable apparatus of payments, of purchasing power, etc. It's equivalent not in value. It's equivalent in structural necessity, because capital can't just be pure flux. It must become a payment system to circulate. You can't just stay as that flux. It has to become actualized in order to circulate, to complete the circulation. It's one of Marx's big sort of things, MCM, CMC. Maybe someday I'll go through that on stream again, because it would take me for a very long time. But this is the thrust that we're sort of driving at. It's kind of a big deal here.
Brooks, can I ask you about that?
Yes.
Because when I was reading Capital for the first time, and later when I was going through secondary sources about Anti-Oedipus, one way that I made a lot of sense of not only the MCM formula, but also of the territorialization, deterritorialization process, as well as the different processes in the passive syntheses, is to think of them as a kind of interlocking mechanism, like a reload mechanism in a gun, or like a locking mechanism, that you can see distinct phases of it, but none of them make sense if they don't all happen in an order.
Yes.
That makes kind of sense.
So I'm going to add slightly to it, but yeah, no, you're basically spot on. That doesn't make a kind of sense. It's just, that's a great way to describe it. I think, to me, it's a great way to describe it. It's very, one of the things that Simondon goes through in Mode of Experience of Technical Objects is the way that machines, as we understand them, we tend to think of them like, what's the term for those long videos where like a ball will roll down a hill, hit a phone, it'll fall off, it'll hit a thing? Rube Goldberg machines. We tend to think of Rube Goldberg machines actually how machines function, but that's not really, because it's like one thing happens and then another and it makes another. But that's not really how machines mostly work. Machines actually work all at once. He has a couple examples. His example is one of that he uses in the book. I use in my video on it, which I have on the channel. The way that a generator in a river, it's a water generator, a hydropower generator, water flows through it. So water flows through it, it makes power. Sort of. The thing is, the water actually is doing stuff that is just more than flowing through it. It's also cooling the gearbox, which is not really intended, but also part of it. But also the oil inside of that is sort of moving, because based on temperature, the oil in the gearbox that is varying in temperature rises and falls to be closer to the water, which makes it more efficient. Like, all of these things have to fire off at once to make this machine work, because a technical object overall has all these pieces that have to be firing at once. You as a person are a very good example of this. We are all meta-stable. There's no stability in humanity. All the parts of you have to be firing off at once. You can say, oh, yeah, well, I feel my heart beating, which makes blood go to my brain, but that's not how it works. It's all at once, go thump, 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 your entire body's doing a thing. And with capital, it is absolutely the same thing. The great machine, the monstrous mutant machine that is capital, yes, it is, all of it pumps at once, all of it fires at once, and the next step continues, and it keeps going and going and going. And so the flux and reflux happening at once, even though it says like one produces the other, they happen at once, because there's no moment where we don't have, like I haven't experienced in my time where people didn't have some level of purchasing power. Like that's always happening. There's always paychecks. There's always money being exchanged. Capital's always making the abstract concrete. It's going through this process, but it's also happening at the same time. So yes, 100%, it's a great way to describe it. Sorry for the ramble, but yeah, I just really like the way to put it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no problem at all. I appreciate that.
All right, good. Yeah. The phrasing they use in this next sentence, and I think it's important. The third world, developing countries, is what they're referring to. The 60s and 70s were a different time when it comes to a lot of this. But what they're calling developing countries, and even what they're referring to then isn't now. Developing countries then are developed now, and we're moving on to other places to exploit. It's a thing we do. It's great, super fun. But a lot of people talk about the third world, the developing countries. These are places more free of capital, and the third world is deterritorialized in relation to the center of capitalism, but it belongs to capitalism, being a pure peripheral territoriality of capitalism. Territorialization, and deterritorialization, is not just a psychological term for them. These things have spatial, it's a spatial term. The third world is basically a deterritorialization from the center. It doesn't have the economic systems, right? In the same way, Wall Street doesn't exist in Nigeria, starting to. Wall Street doesn't exist in, I don't know, pick a place. There's a lot of places you can start being very depressed if you want to talk about. But these things exist as capitalist periphery because the deterritorialization constitutes the reterritorialization. It's not external to capitalism, is the short version. It's internal to the territories and the way that it's set up. Okay. Axiomatizing is not something that the periphery escapes. There's nowhere in the world you can't go to a cave somewhere and get away from it. You don't escape the axiomatic this way. You get, instead, the periphery, the developing countries, are assigned conjugation points within it. The pure peripheral territoriality is what they're talking about there. It's a territorial existence that is fictional to the center of things. It doesn't have autonomous codes. It doesn't have any of that. It's still under capital. It's all pseudo codes because of its axiomatized position. The periphery exemplifies how deterritorialization is reterritorialization under capitalism. The destruction of those territories is reterritorialization under capitalism. They refer to a lot, and it's a great book, is Samir Amin, the accumulation. They cite that a few times in here. Really, really interesting read on the whole thing as well.
The two there's, I think the main book that they cite is called Accumulation on a World Scale.
Yes.
By Samir Amin. Okay.
À l'échelle
Just wanted to
mondiale.
put the title out there.
L'accumulation à l'échelle mondiale. Which I don't pronounce correctly. My French is terrible. But it is accumulation on a world scale, because Samir, who's, if you can guess from the name, not Anglo, and also super Marxist, has a really sort of interesting take on what it means for these other countries, and I think it's worth reading. But again, there is no outside capitalism is the sort of part of this. It's not that, and especially in the 70s, this was a thing. In the 80s, it still was. I think a lot of people have gotten past this, but you never quite know, where people think of like exotic stuff as outside of capitalism. Oh my God, we got coconuts. I can't believe it. It's like, and they feel like it's outside of their system instead of put there by the system. That it is It's a thing people do. People do this. People are fascinating. People are fascinating. But they continue. The system teems with preconscious investments of class and of interest. Kind of a huge... There's a huge thing. There's two types of libidinal investments. Okay, preconscious and unconscious. Preconscious investments are things that operate, investments that operate at class level, at social level, at economic level. It's the level of what you might call the rational or intellectual. Again, not that you're thinking outwardly, not like, oh, I'm considering what class I am. No, it's your preconscious. It's the thing right before it. It's not unconscious, but it's, hey, my class, how you see yourself, this sort of automatic version of things. What are your social goals? What do you understand and encompass as your economic objectives? The domain of proper economy. You exist there. You're invested there. These investments are about sort of the collective organs and organism of things, the way people are set up, the way you're set up, the way your people are set up. And this is rational economic interest, objective class position. Okay. And the system teams with this because they're visible. They manifest it directly in programs of a political party. We see this in America right now, but I mean, if you want to talk about political party, I think talking about how people react to MAGA and Republicans right now versus the CCP, I think is a worthwhile comparison. And it's a very fascinating one where you have this direct investment in these party programs or in wage struggles, which you see a lot with workers these days and people complaining in a lot of ways. It's wages or excess profits here and there and how these companies are not getting profits or are. That this is the domain where class is theoretically determined, where you can identify with objective interests, where benefits can be calculated, where political representation can exist. That this isn't truth, but this is where these things, this is the thing. This is the second thesis of schizoanalysis, the unconscious libidinal investment of group versus preconscious investments of class. There's a difference between them. We're talking about preconscious investments of class and interest. Okay? Yeah. So they say, this is like the critique, it's kind of an important one. Capitalists first have an interest in capitalism. They're being very, very particularly boring but pointed. The interest, we're going through interest right now. Do you see? We just talked about your class interests. Capitalists first have an interest in capitalism. Of course they do. It's a fucking boring ass banal statement. A statement this commonplace as this is made for another purpose. They're not just saying that. It's tautological, but they're using it to make a point. Capitalists have an interest in capitalism only through the tapping of profits they extract from it. The banality of their statement. Capitalists love capitalism. Yes, of course, capitalists profit from capitalism, but it's different than just like profit extraction. And it's different than the thing that conditions profit, which is like the essence of capitalism. This is a different thing. How much surplus can I extract? A quantifiable, a conscious, rational, reasonable idea, right? That it's capitalist. It's only through the tapping of profits they extract from it. But they say that they're making a statement for another purpose. That this conscious interest calculation isn't what drives the system. The statement itself is just sort of the tautological understanding of that class. That's not the thing that makes what profit is. Profit is conditioned by something that profit calculation can't explain. This is all, again, pre-conscious. We're in pre-conscious. The unconscious is a different beast. It's a very different beast. Libidinal investment is the system itself that actually drives this, which is a different thing. A tough distinction in Marx that I read as there is that what capitalism is, which is a mode of production for Marx, it's a mode of production based on abstract labor value. There's a difference between that and its appearance. Its appearance is the maximization of profit, but that's not what capitalism is. This is the commentary they're making. Capitalists have an interest in capitalism only through the tapping of profits that they extract from it. But no matter how large the extraction of profit, it does not define capitalism. Because that's not the thing. That's not what capitalism is. Profits, the surface idea of it. No, it's not defined by profit. It's particular social systemic relations that make capitalism. That's what it is. Capitalism's definition is not profit magnitude. It drives more profit than being a king. That's why we have capitalism. No. Oh, God. Sorry. All the tanky videos I've watched in the last year just like sprang into my brain. This is not the thing. It is the axiomatic operation on the flux, the decoded flux of desire, the impulses themselves. You could have systems that extract enormous profits. Go talk to a handful of kings. They did way better than Elon Musk. Like they just did. If you kill and murder entire civilizations and take everything they've got, like it's significantly more profitable. You spend very little. In fact, you don't really have to outlay anything. You just have to enslave people correctly. So despotic systems can have exceptional profits, but that's not it. Conversely, small profits or minimized profit systems, it doesn't negate a capitalist structure either, because the axiomatic can still operate there. If it's operating there, that axiomatic structure, it's capitalism. That's the thing. The definition of capitalism is not just do people make money. That's baby's first definition. That's not the thing. It's more complex than that. The conjugation of flux, decoded flux specifically, through axiomatic operations, the production of surplus value of flux through machinic and human surplus value extractions, the constant deterritorialization, the constant re-territorialization. Profit is a phenomenal sort of outcome, a form of a deeper process. That deeper process is basically surplus value production through abstract labor and commodity production. But even surplus value doesn't capture the point here. Libidinal investment in the machine itself directly. That's the jam, the investment in the machine itself. The direct investment of the machine itself. So it's incredibly different than the other systems. Because a desire had to be coded, or it had to be overcoded, coded then overcoded in the other systems. This is not the case now. The system is part and parcel. It's a libidinal investment that enters pretty much directly. Because they say, and it's kind of like there's kind of a lot here. And for what does define capitalism, it's right in the middle there. And for what does define capitalism, for what conditions profit, there is an investment of desire whose nature, unconscious libidinal, is altogether different. It's not simply explained by the conditioned profits, but on the contrary, itself explains that a small-time capitalist with no great profits or hopes fully maintains the entirety of his libidinal investments. The libido, investing the great flux that is not convertible as such, not appropriated as such. Non-possession and non-wealth, in the words of Bernard Schmidt, who among modern economists has for us an incomparable advantage. Blah, 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 blah. I'll get to Schmidt in 2 seconds. Because like I was saying, what defines capitalism is not profit. It's not the extraction of profit. This is not the thing. Profit has technically been around for all of these things. Like it's excess. Excess isn't new. Excess isn't new. How we take advantage of excess or how it gets expropriated is not new. This is boring. This has always been the case. It's different than that. What defines capitalism is the libidinal investment in the system's operation. The investment is altogether different from conscious interests. This operates on a fundamentally different register, following a different logic than this system. The logic is that of desire, of libidinal flux. And their proof of it is this example of this failed capitalist, the tiny capitalist with minimal profits. He's able to maintain a full libidinal investment. People who have no money are able to do that. Their conscious interest fails to explain their attachment. When people talk about the poor of Appalachia voting for the Republican Party, and they make that commentary, and they go, God, those people must be just so stupid, because clearly they have no interest. They have no conscious interest in profit maximization. They're failing that. Why are they so silly? Why are they so silly to do this thing? God damn. And that's the thing, is it's instead of making fun of those people, because that's the easy way, take a second and go, yeah, maybe that's not the thing that's happening. Like, maybe it's not that they have a conscious interest. It doesn't explain the attachment. They may say they do, but it's not how it works. Maybe that's not the thing. What they invest in this system is not appropriable wealth. That's even true for the capitalist who's a small-time capitalist who makes a couple million a year, does his thing. That's not enough, really. That's not really what he invests. It's not appropriable wealth. What he invests is the great flux. Schmidt, early like modern monetary type theory stuff, talks about infinite debt flux, the creation of cash ex nihilo, how you can just print money forever and it doesn't really seem to matter. Modern monetary theory, which is, in my opinion, something we've learned pretty significantly over the last 20 years, actually has a lot more legs to stand on than people want to give it credit for. Talks about how if we just produce all the money that there is and it's always being consumed for production, we can just give people money for forever. If they just hoard it, it ruins the system. But if they're producing with it, it seems like inflation stays pretty limited. Then kind of the thing, and this is Schmidt's contribution to this, is the delirious nature of capitalism that he writes about and wrote about. Not writes about. He has not been around for a little while. Because for him, it's not like a metaphor of the delirium of capitalism. Oh, wow, it's so wild. No, it's the structural insanity of capitalism is fundamental. Banks create money as spontaneous debt. They just do this, and they project a negative currency. They project a liability and a positive currency, credit, at the same time. These are things that are created at once, the liability and credit, both at the same time. And it's this really weird way this works is what they call the great mutant flux, the flux with mutating power. It doesn't enter income. It is pure availability. It is this non-possession, non-wealth that they're going through here. This is not a mystification of capitalism. This is the fundamental way capitalism functions, like across the board. It's, I hate people with business degrees, but I got to tell you, a lot of more people should sort of be forced to understand how actual things work in our economy. Because it's not just the simple thing people tend to take it as, because they get paychecks and they think that's how everyone else exists. That's not it.
Wow. So you hate me? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Business. My running joke is people with business degrees ruin the world. but everyone I know who has it.
100% agree with that. So,
well, see, everyone I know who has a business degree agrees with me. So it's. I have a bunch of friends who who have business degrees who they aren't that predatory piece of shit, but they're all like, yeah, everyone else in my class was. Everyone else in my graduating class was. Yeah, I went to this school. They're all pieces of shit, and it's like, yeah, pretty much. But but the thing is, the business degree gives you an understanding of, wait, this is actually, there's a functional underlying thing that's happening here that is not mystification. It is, from any rational economic standpoint, absurd. But capital is that. Capital does this. Capital builds this. It is a fantastic machine. You, Sean. You have to mute up. All right, I will unmute you, Sean, soon enough. I don't think they were talking to me. I'm assuming it sounded like a language I don't know. Maybe they were talking to me and I just am too stupid, which happens. Go for it, Marcellus.
Brooks, the libidinal investment, right? There's two types. You said, as you said, there's the unconscious and preconscious, right? Mm-hmm. The preconscious is what kind of like the class, right? The class, but the unconscious working in a different register, right? The non-possession and non-wealth, right? It's kind of the register of the investment, right? Operating in a like capitalism is not about like profit extraction. That's a superficial thing, as you said, right? Mm-hmm. But how can we locate this kind of unconscious investment, and how can we recognize that, right? How can we recognize this unconscious investment, right? The preconscious, we recognize this because it's within the social formation. But how can we recognize this unconscious investment, right? It's kind
do you mean unconscious or preconscious? Because unconscious, I'm not sure. Unconscious, I'm not sure we can necessarily recognize, except they give a couple of ways and all of that, but it's more through indices. You can't directly see what someone's invested in. That's not how it works. It's not a symbolic system. It's a system of indices of repulsions that sort of outline and play with it. Like I used to talk about it as like if you were to take an unconscious libidinal system and just think of it as forces of magnetism and just drop a bunch of iron filings, you'd be able to see where the pockets are, where the attractions are heaviest, where the repulsion's strongest. Does it mean anything? It may take shape. Don't mistake it for shape, but it helps you understand those things. The preconscious investments is a different beast, because the preconscious investments are a product of the molar aggregation and molar syntheses of the socius. It's not something that happens personally to you, right? It's not something that you, as even your subjectivity, that this sort of comes from that. This is not something that happens within you. This is something that is social. The preconscious sort of setup emerges when desiring production undergoes the statistical accumulation into molar aggregates on the socius, right? So the socius, which is the recording surface that appropriates production, makes it appear to emanate from itself, seems to work in this way where it's like the molecular connections get organized into global. The global connections are ones that are symbolic, metaphorical, of family, class. There is no actual class. We have a bunch of classes. There's no race. You hear a lot of people having conversations these days about understanding what the oppression is that any single person's feeling. There's a fundamental misunderstanding that these lenses are not actually a determinant of any single person, that these are statistically large molar aggregates that are at play. It's not saying that racism doesn't exist at a fundamental level, but any single person, they're not that thing. No single two people are that thing. The global connections, that are sort of this universalized thing are the family, their class, their race, their things like that. The race mostly comes from exclusive disjunctions. So instead of molecular connections leading to inclusive disjunctions into nomadic subject residue, you're talking about global connections that are exclusive disjunctions that become fixed as stable subjects, as ego, as a member of class or party or race, as specific persons. So the mechanism that sort of is at play here is a statistical transformation and an understanding of oneself as that statistical representation instead of the emergent sort of beginning of it. Holland refers to molar investments as exerting strong selective pressure on molecularity. And what this does is it limits the multiplicity that molecularity sort of has and shapes it into prevailing forms of sovereignty. And this is the difference. Unconscious libidinal investments are molecular. This is the unconscious operating as it does, sort of freely. And it is a legitimate use. It is a directly investing developments of force in the socius. There's no meaning. There's no purpose here. Unconscious libidinal investments don't have this will be good for my race. Nope, you're down the line. This is way earlier than that. This is if you've ever seen someone who's taken your breath away, whether through beauty or whatever, or someone who is stunning, there is a moment before you rationalize away that thing that like there's a hit. This can happen with art. This can happen with music. Something hits you and it's like, ugh, and you just are hit by it. This is not the same thing as the preconscious investment of understanding the abstract sort of way that this thing interplays, the molar representations that are organized on the socius that sort of come back to these things. So what you have is a process of these two elements, because again, you exist as a unique collection of things in time and recordings of these things in time that then fall back on itself. But what the difference becomes is that preconscious and elements invest the regime. Unconscious elements invest the force itself. It's different regimes, the same production process. And it's kind of a big shift directly. Does that help?
So it's different regimes in terms of like investment, but they are the same with desire, or they're coming from desire and production, right? They're the same kind of like libidinal.
Think of it as because you can kind of do the same thing as why does anyone work the job that they work? Now, what is the job that a person does in capitalism? We're talking about in capitalism. Back in the day, the reason anyone did the job they did is because they had they were born into it. They had no choice. There was no conception of like doing whatever. You were born into a blacksmith's son. You were a blacksmith's son. You were a shoemaker's son. Our names, family names were there for a fucking reason. You had your position in society. You did that thing. It is what the social system sort of built. That's not different now. We don't feel it the same way because the social system is sort of ensconced within desire. Capital is right up against it. So we end up in this really weird place where the reason I'm making anything is because the contingent sort of way capital has come together has put me in this position. I am making right now video content for YouTube that is delivering ads generally for Israel, which is weird, but driving that flux in that way. But that's not what I'm doing. But that's what I'm doing. Like, I can't get away from that. I don't give a fuck about the ads that are playing here. That's not how I exist. I don't care about the ads that are playing. It's not a thing that matters to me. Yes, people get ads for Israel and visiting Israel all the time while watching me, which is my favorite thing because clearly they're just overspending and they don't understand what they're doing. But that thing that's happening down the line, I'm part of this larger YouTube capitalist superstructure, white power structure, middle-class white guy doing X, patriarchy. All of these things are these molar representations at large. I am doing the things I'm doing, not because of those, but I'm doing the things I'm doing because of those. They come at once. They're coextensive. And capital works this way. I'm here. My investments are wherever they are in both ways. They don't exist separately. They come together at once. And this is the sort of the thrust of what they're driving at. The machine that operates through pure difference, the debt credit flux, the infinite circulation, this constant mutation of capital. And I've been going through gamma trading for the last week, so videos coming on that soon. Because underneath it, and this is a thing that I have experienced, I think a lot of people have in one way or another, when you are actually an existent positive part of this system, it feels good. There's a disinterested love of the operation of the system. It is not the phrasing disinterested love, and they talk about this a lot. The disinterested has an odd sort of, I don't know, English plays with it in a funny way, but they're being very specific. The love doesn't have an interest. And they mean that in like the economic sense, that my interest in my children, I have an interested love in my children, because as they grow, I get rewarded for that. I feel that directly. That these things come back and forth. A disinterested love is the love that people have for the capitalist system. It isn't that they love the system. It's a disinterested love in the system. It doesn't matter what they get out of it. It doesn't matter their interest. That's not a thing. It's deeper than that. They're invested in that system and the love of that system. So small capitalists, or even the Appalachian poor of West Virginia, will vote for Trump and the capitalist system as a total, because it's not about profit. It's about the flux of capital itself, about the machine's autonomous movement, and they are interested in that.
That's remind me of a previous reading that we did about the disinterested love in reactionary and revolutionary Poe.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
In one of the sections.
Yep.
Right? So
not far. It seems like it was a long time ago, but it was not. You're spot on. Yes.
Yeah. So disinterested love in this, in this machine, in this kind of molar aggregate, right? This disinterested love is not based on interest, not based on kind of like it doesn't care or something. Could you explain that more? Like because it's very important.
I'm trying to think, because I thought I did explain it just now, and if I didn't, I need to take a second to think about how I'm doing it. I actually think the best way to do this is to continue to the next paragraph. Not to be a dick, but I think like this is the what you're asking is actually the point of the rest of the book, is getting people to and getting theory to take a step back from this idea that capitalism is about interest. And if we can only teach enough people that, hey, this system doesn't work for you, that they'll have a moment of elation that will make them revolutionary. If only they can see past the ideological blind spots, which tends to bleed into every revolutionary movement I'm aware of. This idea that from Said Qutb, who wrote about Islamic jihad early on, all the way through to Ted Kaczynski, to school shooters, to whoever it is, this silly underlying belief that if only I can show people the truth, then they will have a moment of emancipation and they will fight to change everything. And they're like, here's the problem though. Everything you're talking about requires an actual developed preconscious interest in that thing. So let's say you can actually modify everyone's preconscious interest. Just like, let's say you could do that. It doesn't matter, because the unconscious investment of desire in the system, which is disinterested, it's not there because, I will get profits out of this. People make that mistake all the time. That's not what is it. That's not how any of this fucking works. It's instead the investment in the system, which is not an outcome. A system is not an outcome. They're not there to make sure capitalism keeps moving. It's in the actual pulsing and impulse that happens in the system. They enjoy that movement. Has anyone here, if you've ever worked fast food, this is, I don't even know if this is a great example of it, but this is the stuff that comes to mind. My first earliest job I had was McDonald's, and I worked the morning shift before school and then sometimes after school. And the morning shift was fascinating because it would only be 2 or 3 of us, and I'd be on cook or drive-through, and you had to basically be really a well-oiled machine because there was only a couple people. The boss couldn't afford more. It's the way it worked, but we made it work and we did it exceptionally well. But when you're working and you're in that place, you're not creative. I wasn't like creatively trying to figure out how to make the best McDonald's burger. That's not the setup. I was a cog in the machine in an exceptionally efficient way. So was everyone else. The pride afterwards that come from that, the feeling from that, there's a couple things. One is we won an award. We won like it was the fastest drive-through. We had some secret shopper come through. It was crazy. We won an award. That's an interested love. That is where I'm proud of myself, blah, blah. But there is in those moments of, as I'm doing things, as you're working, as you're handing things off, as you're setting it off, that is a disinterested passion that is in the system itself that feels satisfying itself. Maybe you haven't experienced this. Maybe, I don't know if this is just me, but this is kind of the thing as I understand this idea of disinterested love of the system, of the machine. The machine is fantastic. The machine functions, and it's not about the excess. It's about every single part of me existing, feeling like it's working. Not intellectualizing it, not thinking about it that way, but the actual imminent experience of it working. And when it works, it feels great. It feels great. I can intellectualize it afterwards. We can all do that. We can talk about it great, and we can understand our class positions. We can do all that stuff. We can understand the preconscious interest, then we can abstract, we can fight. But the system that we are directly investing our libidinal powers into, that's the thing. Like, that feels great. Drunken Machine says, you describe that. Let's say I give you a time machine, send you back before Pearl Harbor, armed with knowledge and clothes on your body. Can you change anything? How about slavery? Yeah, it's the comment I always like to make is if you went back and you killed baby Hitler, it wouldn't stop anything. If you think Hitler's the reason that the Holocaust or World War II happened, you fundamentally don't understand how society works, because it's not a person making choices. People are put in positions because society at large emergently is positioning things. This is not different. The society does its thing, but this is at large. You as one part are invested in that large pulsing system, the same way that you feel your heartbeat pulsing through your body when you're in moments of flow or concentration or passion, and you're kind of feeling or don't feel every part of you, but you're kind of lost in that thing. The ability to be lost in that pulsing of society back and forth is absolutely there. And that's why they go on to say, this is a shorter paragraph, but it's a good one because it answers, I think, the question well too. If one keeps in mind the tautological statement made above, one can then understand that people whose preconscious investments of interest do not, or should not, go in the direction of capitalism, can maintain an unconscious libidinal investment consonant with capitalism, or that scarcely threatens it. In the first case, they confine and localize their preconscious interest in wage increases, the improvement of the standard of living. Powerful organizations represent them, which get nasty as soon as nature of their aims is questioned. Well, it's clear that you're not workers. You have no idea whatsoever of real struggles. Let's attack profits for better management of the system. Vote for a clean Paris. Welcome, Mr. Brezhnev. That is the most contingent, weird, small referent down to a French moment of history. It's unbelievable. It's a lot. And how, indeed, one could fail to find one's interest in the whole where one has sunk it at the heart of the capitalist system. Or else, in the second case, there is truly a new investment of interest, new aims that presuppose another body than that of capital money. Those exploited become conscious of their pre-conscious interest, and their interest is truly revolutionary, a major break from the standpoint of the pre-conscious. Let's start with the opener here. If one keeps in mind the tautological statement made above, again, capitalists, capital, one can then understand that people whose preconscious investments of interest do not or should not go in the direction of capitalism can maintain an unconscious libidinal investment consonant, conforming to capitalism, that scarcely threatens it. Like the entire point of the previous paragraph was this, the objective class position. Like when I say objective, I mean, we all understand poor white people are not rich white people. It doesn't determine unconscious investment. These things don't work that way. Workers whose preconscious interest should be revolutionary because they're exploited. They should oppose capitalism, yet they nonetheless maintain this unconscious libidinal investment that supports it. So this is all of what we've talked about. There's a question that this book is based on. It's a Reich asked it of World War II. World War II came and went. He got to experience it far too close in the world of Germany and see all of these people and turn the way that they did and watch, as he said, why do people ask for their own repression? Why do people scream more taxes, less bread? That's his question. He never really answered it satisfactorily, but this is... One second, I have a monster who's sneaking around. Hello, monster. What can I help you with, monster? And streaming again, in theory. I'm watching YouTube to see if it happens. Oh no. Come on, YouTube. There we go. Sorry about that. What are you up to, Dexter?
I really love you, Dad. Can you please play a game?
I'm not playing a game right now, but I appreciate that. I'm reading Complicated Philosophy. You want to join me? You want to join me, Dexter? You do? You can if you want. This is not Little Inferno, and this is not Sonic. This is something else entirely.
But it's a game.
This is not a game, Dexter. Hey, head upstairs. Okay, upstairs. Go, butt. Go, butt.
No.
Come on, butt.
No.
Give me just a moment. I'll be right back. So he's 8, and it's a fascinating time. My daughter's 3. Have you ever heard the term three-nager? I have now. And it's very confusing. What a thing. Should be back live on YouTube and everything. Should be running. Good. So I was talking about Reich. So Reich's question, why do men desire their own repression? Why do men demand their own oppression? Which is his underlying thing through, I think, most of his work, especially the more powerful stuff, frankly. The thing that has generally happened, the answer has been ideology. The answer we see a lot of people come to now is ideology. Oh, it's because they've been tricked. They've been fooled. Their ideological status as MAGA, they can't see through it. And if only they could see the truth, blah, 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 blah. But if we go to this place of false consciousness, which, Marx a few others, as if other people did. We'll just say a few others. The problem is that this, again, presumes this negative instead of this active positive process, which, if you haven't been paying attention to AO, kind of important to these guys. Just a little bit. Instead, we should be talking about positive desire. Oh, you can't see me on Discord. Oh. There, fixed. Instead, we should be thinking about this as positive desire, but at the infrastructure level. So while the worker may consciously oppose capitalism, it absolutely may, unconsciously, they may actually invest the capitalist machine itself. I would argue that China and Russia are exceptional examples of this. Pick a place, really. One of the challenges is that capitalism, because it functions as it does at this base level, how do you set up any of these other things? How do you set up a system that doesn't work this way? How do you organize desire? Well, they're already invested in that. They're already invested systemically, not consciously or pre-consciously, but libidinally. And the two levels that we're talking about here, these are not the same thing. It's important to understand that. These are not the same thing. These operate on different registers fundamentally. They don't share law or regime, is the phrasing they've got. Don't share law or regime. And it doesn't really threaten it when unconscious investment doesn't support capitalism. Like, that's that last line here that is kind of like, can maintain an unconscious libidinal investment consonant with capitalism or that scarcely threatens it. Scarcely threatens it. He's over there dancing at the door again. He doesn't know he's not on camera. He thought he was still on camera. He's dancing. It's incredibly difficult not to just crack up laughing right now. But I don't want to try to encourage the behavior. But that's it. If it doesn't constitute a revolutionary rupture, it doesn't threaten it. It maintains the system. Like, that's the part that's like makes capitalism so fucking brutal. It has to be a total rupture in order to threaten it. Otherwise, it's kind of like, oh, look, you're not invested in me. You keep doing you, boy. That's it. It doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't matter. A negative critique without an actual revolutionary break leaves capitalism intact entirely. So they go through then step by step. People whose precocious investments of interest do not or should not go in the direction of capitalism can maintain or uncontrollable. In the first case, they confine it, localize their preconscious interest in wage increases and the improvement of the standard of living. Powerful organizations represent them, which get nasty as soon as the nature of their aims is questioned. And then they have a huge fucking... Boy, does D&G hated the communist groups. And to be fair, I do too. They suck. Do you know anyone who identifies actively as communist who isn't just insufferable? Well, that's their example. The French Communist Party made this comment when Brezhnev was visiting. And that's the line that they have here. Yelling at everyone. And this was a 1971 visit, and they're making a whole bunch of sort of comments on purity testing for these groups. I mean, again, anyone who's here has run into these fucking people. It's clear you're not workers. You have no idea whatsoever of real struggle. Attack profits for better management of the system. Vote for clean Paris. Welcome, Mr. Brezhnev. Because Brezhnev was a reformist middleman. Like, it's a joke. It's meant to be a joke. It's meant to be a joke. Soviet orthodoxy wasn't communism. It wasn't Marxist. Fuck the Soviet Union too. Like, it's all shit. It's all shit. And that's, for them, again, the two registers. So if we talk about the first case is workers maintaining reactionary unconscious investments. This is reformism. I'm probably guilty of this. It's probably safe to say. We all are to a point. We can talk about that if you want, but the limit of preconscious revolutionary interests sort of exists to wage or living standard improvements. We've all probably been here at one point or another. If only people had better wages. If only, my favorite line from a UK communist, Will, says, "I gave up that childish D&G shit and moved to the grown-up stuff." Marx, holy fuck, I love it. I love that. I Marx and Luna Oi. The thing that's sort of happening with this is that you're limiting these things because quantitative improvements within capitalism are enabled by this reactionary investment overall. It's confined and localized. It's semi-deliberate but more processually deliberate containment of potential revolutionary energy into safe reformist channels. And that thing, the powerful organizations, there are more than a few stories of labor unions, trade unions, the Communist Party they're making fun of here for sure, DSA groups, online groups, the fucking the purity testing that exists across all of these things that is particular with fixed goals and means, ossifying into sovereignty itself as they take power. These groups that have done this, that have grown, and a lot of them were born or birthed of emergent sort of semi-revolutionary connection, but still a reactionary investment in the system. That thing became ossified and becomes a thing itself. So when I first moved to Washington State, we had a state congresswoman who was a communist, which I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. Turned out not really, actually. As much as everyone was very excited to have that, she was a fucking nightmare. And very much one of those welcome Mr. Brezhnev types. And that's the frustration for me. And so they continue. And how indeed one could fail to find one's interest in the whole where one has sunk it. At the heart of the capitalist system. Once you've invested your interest in reformist goals within capitalism, like wage increases, living standards, whatever, you will find your interest there. It's not because the improvements aren't real. It's not because the improvements don't matter, but because you've confined yourself to the terrain, the territoriality that is there. Though the hole where one has sunk it is, you dig a hole and you sink a thing in it, and then you go, hey, look, the fence post is in that fucking hole. It's crazy. You dug it. You did that. You did that. You did that. Reformism is resilient in capitalism because of this. It is not because of false consciousness or any of that ideological bullshit. It's not any of that. Instead, it's because it's this circular structure where invested interest generates confirmation. You can find a reason to support a system you're invested in because you're invested in it. So you can find it. Get it? You're invested in the system. So it's not hard to do. It's like, whoop, there you go. I found, wow, look, I wanted to find a thing here and I did. Wow. That's just the way that this functions. But they say, or else in the second case, there is a truly new investment of interest, new aims that presuppose another body than that of capital money. those exploited become conscious of their preconscious interest, and this interest is truly revolutionary, a major break from the standpoint of the preconscious. This genuinely revolutionary preconscious investment. Not reformism. This is actual counterinvestment that creates its own interest in terms of new social aims. Not directly counter, but a counterinvestment that builds new. New aims that presuppose another body, because revolutionary goals can't be recognized within capitalism. That's the older body. That's the old body. That's it. That's it. That's it. The exploited become conscious of preconscious interest. This is the explication, they're saying, of in order to get to this point where the exploited become conscious of their preconscious interest, it necessitates the new aims presupposing a new body, a different social organization, different recording surface entirely. Yeah, this is how these things function. They've got another thing that's coming up here that's going to basically go through this, but that's, like, for them, this is the thrust. This is resolving Reich's question finally, without ideology being the center of it. There is positive libidinal investment at the infrastructure level, which operates independently from preconscious interests and requires an entirely different analysis. Say, schizoanalysis, for example, rather than a critique of ideology as some others might do. Yeah. Shall we do one more paragraph? It's going to be a longer one.
Let's go.
Fuck it, let's do it. All right. Any questions, comments before I get moving on to the next little bit here? Just asking before I do. Hello, 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 hello. 1 sec. Let me see if I can get the brightening up here of... Why is that dullish? Why is it dullish on the screen for everyone? I don't know why. Two seconds. I want to see if I can fix that. Don't know. It's fine. We'll deal with it later. I'm going to have to redo my entire OBS anyway. So let's continue reading. Because they've started. But this is not how to get a revolution. But it is not enough for the libido to invest a new social body corresponding to these new aims in order for it to perform a revolutionary break at the unconscious level with the same mode as the preconscious break. In fact, the two levels do not function in the same mode. The new socius, invested by the libido as a full body, can very well function as an autonomous territoriality, but one that is caught and wedged in the capitalist machine and is localizable in the field of its market. For the great flux of mutant capital repels its limits, adds new axiom, and maintains desire within a mobile framework of its expanded limits. There can be a preconscious revolutionary break, with no real libidinal and unconscious revolutionary break. Or rather, the order of things is as follows. There is first a real libidinal revolutionary break, which then shifts into the position of a simple revolutionary break with regards to aims and interests, and finally, reforms a merely specific reterritoriality, a specific body on the full body of capital. Subjugated groups are continually deriving from revolutionary subject groups. One more axiom. There is no more complicated than in the case of abstract painting. Everything begins with Marx, continues on with Lenin, and ends with the refrain, "Welcome, Mr. Brezhnev." Is this still a case of revolutionaries speaking to another revolutionary, or rather, a village clamoring for a new prefect? And if one were to ask when it all started to go bad, how far back must we go for an answer? Back to Lenin? Back to Marx? So true is it that the various investments, even when opposed, can coexist with one another in complexes that are not the province of Oedipus, but that do concern the social historical field. Its preconscious and unconscious conflicts and contradictions, about which it can only be said that they fall back on Oedipus, Marx the father, Lenin the father, Brezhnev the father. Fewer and fewer people believe in all this, but it makes no difference, since capitalism is like the Christian religion. It lives precisely from a lack of belief. It does not need it. A motley painting of all that has been believed. Really good banger lines in here.
I want to get one question out of the way.
Uh-oh. What's that?
In the French, it says peinture bigarrée, which was motley painting.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't know what either of those words mean.
Variegated and multicolored.
It's like the Motley Crew, man.
Well, motley is like...
Sorry, dumb joke.
I know about the Motley Crew. I thought for a long time that was not a real word.
It's internally varied. Smashed together colors, multicolored, variegated. Peinture bigarrée, the motley painting is the... pastiche. Capitalism is a museum of dead beliefs that pulls together images of all sorts of things for any lifestyle, for whatever it is. The motley surface of capital axiomizes everything that has ever been believed, empties it, and represents it.
Is it kind of like a brackish that fits badly together?
No. Brackish would be not mixed.
Okay.
The motley doesn't mean not mixed or not function. Like it's not that it's ugly. It's that it is. It just is a lot of shit thrown together.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that it doesn't mean that it doesn't fit together. It's just that you can clearly tell that these are different things mixed together.
Yeah, it's medley is a derivative of it. Motley is because once upon a time we had court jesters. This is like the English derivation of the term that I'm aware of. And they would dress in the most garish like combination of things, but that odd combination of things, the colors that they wore with bells and all that shit, like the Motley Fool is the famous sort of visual for this. And it just means exceptionally varied, but it doesn't mean discontinuous directly. It also doesn't mean continuous. It's not really relative to that. It does tend to have a negative sort of connotation, but I don't know if they're like heavily said. It's empty of meaning. Like the jesters, the Motley Fool, the jester's outfit didn't like have red because red symbolized blood and green symbolized wealth. Like it was a motley pile of shit. Cliches put together that didn't really have a secondary meaning. So when you talk about like a motley painting of all that has been believed, it is all of it together, but not in a way that like, coherently or it's not coherent or incoherent. It's just all of the things capitalism is putting together for us. Like just it's there. I tend to use the word pastiche. One of the effects of postmodernism is like a Tarantino film.
Pastiche is kind of what I was imagining.
Please.
No, it was just that pastiche in this context is kind of what I was imagining, but
yeah,
I'm not I mean, like I said, the only other times I've ever run into the English word motley is when talking about what does the band name Motley Crue actually mean.
It means the same thing. People who are together that it's not that they are like meant to be together or that they easily work together. A motley crew is just whoever happened to be around.
But is it like, so they're not meant to be together, you don't think it would work together, but it does?
No, not necessarily, because maybe it doesn't work. Like it's not a phrasing that is intended to impinge on that last bit. It's not, oh, it flows together nicely. It's just a motley crew is just whoever happens to be around.
Okay.
They just happen to be together. A Tarantino film, well, there is intention and it's filled with cliches like up the ass, and the fucking amount of pastiche is almost overwhelming in almost everything that he's put into anything. It does work, but the reason we wouldn't like the motley thing, we don't call it a motley film, we call it pastiche because it's intentionally put together. Motley is just blah, like vomiting it all out, and there it is. And that is produced. Again,
Brooks, towards that end there, where he's talking about Marx and Lenin, is he saying that even with the revolutionary, event coming about, that it eventually falls back on Oedipal structures?
Well,
or is it the Oedipal structures persists through the revolutionary?
This paragraph is going to get into that, actually, I think. The paragraph's going to get into this because it's about the reduction to the Oedipal. It's not so much that it falls back on, but it's reduced to the global persons, which I was talking about earlier, the molar persons, the molar, like statistically at large, I am a father. Like that, you can say, okay, so let's talk to all the fathers. So then, okay, well, that's a commonality. We grab all the fathers, grab the mothers, grab people without children. These are statistical at-large global persons. I am not a father. I'm a father statistically at large. That's kind of the closest we get. But that's kind of the complexity of what this does, is it builds it does a reduction of me to man, woman, father, mother, these particular sort of things to enable triangulation. I think it might be better to say, as they say in here, that it's that things fall back on Oedipus. You could say things fall back on Oedipus in this way. The phrasing they use is that things fall back on Oedipus. I'm hesitant to sort of say it in that same way because of the sort of terminology around that.
So in this context, the Oedipus represents the patriarchal structure, right? And is he saying that that structure of patriarchy persists through the revolutionary?
It's not so much that Oedipus is the patriarchal structure; it's that Oedipus is structure. Oedipus is a schema. Oedipus is a diagrammatic that is the thing that is put into the equation to reduce things to that schema. The Oedipal reduction that takes place and how it functions is the mystification that's happening. But it's not that it is patriarchal. Oedipus enables that, but it's not directly that it is, even though they're using the example of father. The same could be done of mother. The same could be done of me. It's the specific thing that they're phrasing. Let me get through, because I want to get through a couple of bits of this, because it's a pretty complex set of sentences that I was just trying to go through, and I want to make sure I get to them properly. Yeah, I want to get to that in line with the text. So this opening bit, I'll try to get through it fast because actually there's not a lot here that we haven't kind of talked about at length. But it is not enough for the libido to invest in a new social body corresponding to these new aims in order for it to perform a revolutionary break at the unconscious level with the same modes as the preconscious break. Revolutionary preconscious investments, which we talked about just in the last one. It's on the second hand, the second case. New social aims, different socialists and capitalists, etc. This is not just going to make a revolutionary unconscious investment. These things work in different regimes, different modes. There's not enough for libido to invest in a new social body. Even if libido is investing a revolutionary socius, a revolutionary party, a revolutionary commune, maybe a Soviet one, which is their joke sort of here. This investment is molar and paranoid. It can absolutely be that instead of molecular or part of the schiz. The content changes, but the investment, the structural investment may not. If you're still investing a form of sovereignty, a stable recording surface, a gregarious aggregate that crushes molecular singularities and desire, you're actually dealing with the same mode as the preconscious break. Okay? The unconscious revolutionary break is a rupture of causality, a rupture of the molecular flux entirely. They're different modes, even if they're directed at the same object, even if they're directed and used by the same social production apparatus. The revolutionary consciousness is not the same as revolutionary desire. Conversely, reactionary is not the same as reactionary desire, right? You can have conscious revolutionary goals, unconsciously investing new forms of power that reproduce subjugation directly, which we've gone over. And they say, in fact, the two levels do not function in the same mode. The new socius invested by the libido as full body can very well function as an autonomous territoriality, but one that is caught and wedged in the capitalist machine and is localizable in the field of its market. No, well, you're not distracting with terminology. I didn't get a chance to respond because I was going through too much. Well, I'll get to it. Don't worry. Eventually. Revolutionary movements, which have existed, become absorbed. This new socius becomes this autonomous territoriality. It seems independent, self-governing. It seems outside of capitalism. But it's actually caught and wedged in the larger capitalist machine. That phrasing I really love because, again, think of it as all of it is the capitalist machine. If you have this, oh, this is weird, you wedge it in, it's breaking everything. It's a setup. It's fine. Autonomous territoriality means reterritorialization within the axiomatic of capital. It seems like an alternative, but it functions as a specific body on the full body of capital. It's localized. It's this enclave of change. That's fine. Capitalism can accommodate that. It's not a problem. Reterritorialization enables this. You can constantly be doing and building back over and paving over and taking it over. Because even if you have this revolutionary organization, it's going to exist and be produced, as are the subjects and people within it, in the capitalist market. You're going to be buying and selling commodities. You're operating through money and capital. You have determinate positions within capital's axiomatic. The joke they keep coming to, the Communist Party of France, right? Communist parties in Italy. They've made the comments about the kibbutz in Israel, which obviously not ending up to be super fucking left-wing. And like the super lefties in Israel, kind of genocidal. It's almost like that's not the thing. These things all exist within capitalism's larger expanded field. And we're going to be getting there. Trust me, JK. We're getting there in just a second. We're getting there. Because they have the line, for the great mutant flow of capital, repels its limits, adds new axioms, maintains desire within the more global framework of its expanded limits. The way things are absorbed are because of capital's fundamental movement, which we've been through. It's able to expand, push back limits, but simultaneously reproduce those limits at larger scales. That's how it works. This mutant capital that's able to sort of be born of nothing. Like they bake capital out of nothing, is pure deterritorialization, this infinite flux that comes about, that's able to be there. Yeah, it's able to do this. But it still operates through the limits of itself, the limits where it's concretized, the purchasing power, markets, wage labor, things like that. So basically, there's this really weird way that it surpasses every limit by reproducing the limit on a wider scale, by reproducing it on a wider scale. Right? So they say there can be a preconscious revolutionary break with no real libidinal and unconscious revolutionary break. It's just them saying it explicitly. You can totally have a revolutionary party, revolutionary class, revolutionary aims and interests, revolutionary manifesto. You can have your new socialist as a goal, all of those fun things. Yet still be unconsciously invested in sovereignty, molar rather than molecular, paranoid, not schizoid, subjugated, not subject. And the actual existing revolutionary movements, and that's their sort of running joke they have through this, that's what's happening. They're preconsciously revolutionary, but unconsciously reactionary. And so that's why revolutions go bad. It's why these movements fail. It's not betrayal or error, structural mismatch between levels. And you can see this in Mega. And I try to always bring that in because it's an important distinction that a lot of people who voted for Trump the first time around did so to burn the system to the ground. But their investment is so fucking hard in the system that they're just there. So they can talk about, oh, they want to overturn this, they want to fix this, whatever it is. You think that's what drives them? No. It's their unconscious investments in things. The unconscious investments in this larger power structure that's setting up there. So they say, or rather, the order of things is as follows. There is first a real libidinal revolutionary break, which then shifts into the position of a simple revolutionary break with regards to aims and interests, and finally reforms as a merely specific reterritoriality, a specific body on the full body of capital. This is how revolutions fail. Made very, very simple. You have a genuine, unconscious revolutionary investment. The flux of the molecular bursts, the light of flight is hitting, everything's going. There's a rupture with causality. Desire escapes axiomatization. Revolution begins with desire, not with duty, not with interest. It always starts with desire, every single one of them, always. Spontaneous uprisings where desire breaks through. Then it shifts into position of simple revolutionary break with regard to aims and interests. So, we're going to change everything. And then someone asks, well, what's tomorrow? What do you want to do tomorrow? You have your revolution, then what? Well, we're going to do this. It merely preconscious revolutionary break. The subject group basically transforms into a subjugated group. Leadership now defines goals, creates a hierarchy, channels this flux of desire that was breaching all of it. What was molecular deterritorialization is now molar organization. But it has revolutionary aims. And then it's absorbed, reabsorbed. It reforms merely specific reterritoriality, a specific body on the full body of capital. The revolutionary movement becomes another axiom in capitalism. It doesn't matter. There's a bunch of versions of this. They've been talking about the Communist Party of France, became a legal opposition party. Trade unions and labor unions are labor management very often. Socialist states are peripherally capitalistic and actually serve capitalist systems. Communes in Israel are real estate experiments. That's it. shifting the way we normally talk about how revolution happens. We tend to think revolutionary consciousness breeds action, which makes revolution victory or defeat happen. But that's not it. It's desire, preconscious organization, reterritorialization. Unconscious rupture comes first, captured by preconscious forms, and then absorbed by the axiomatic. Everything begins with Marx, continues with Lenin, ends with Brezhnev. Marx frees, Lenin assigns, Brezhnev collapses, reabsorbs. And so they say, and it's a great line here, subjugated groups are continually deriving from revolutionary subject groups. There's an ongoing process and sequence of this always happening. There's a lot of amazing subject groups out there, these molecular formations that spontaneously form. We're going to change the world. We're going to do whatever, then become subjugated groups as they join the Muller aggregate, paranoid investment, and setup. The process we just went through. That's what they're sort of assigning all this through.
So people like Mondami and Bernie Sanders would be also, they're committed socialists, but they're still part of the capitalist system, right?
Yeah, and it's and this is where you start to see a lot of the purity testing is always fun, but Bernie is actually a great example because he is, and I think it would be hard for me to say sort of otherwise. He represents a really interesting thing. He's been in politics longer than I've been alive. I think he's been in Congress Senate most of my life. And he is someone who wants change. But his movement, what it meant and how it ossified around him particularly, and this is kind of what happened. He wasn't the leader of a movement until, 2010s. He was just another kind of a semi-lefty. The 2000s were weird for politics. The 90s were even weirder. But he was kind of a spearhead piercing through that. And everyone jumped in behind him. Oh my God, Bernie's going to change the world, And then it turned out actually Bernie was not going to change the world. That's not his thing. In fact, he's not really majorly revolutionary. He's minorly revolutionary, but suddenly what he was defined. And the limits of what he was and what he wanted was defined. And the disillusionment that took over was a lot of people who went, oh, he's not the most revolutionary thing that's going to change everything. Well, then I have no interest. But that's, again, changing how they behave. It's the ossification of the process. And so with Mondani, you're seeing it already as well, where I think what he's doing is fascinating, and he's doing a lot of very strange moves. But what he is becoming a particular organization and hierarchy. The Mondani type of Democrat. They're already defining this in leftist media, and they're trying to sort of say this, just like they did with Bernie Bros and that thing. The way capital works is by recapturing these subject groups people who just happen to support Mondani and his candidacy or what he stood for or whatever it was, into people who support Mondani. That's their setup. A Trumper wasn't a Trumper prior to that. They were Republican. There was a wide variety, and they ossified into a specific thing. My audio on stream is scratching bad. Wonderful. One moment. Unbelievable. It's fucking stupid. The fucking goddamn computer. Hopefully that fixes it. In some capacity. It's weird why it's not happening in Discord. Or was it happening? I don't know. But what they're talking about is the movement from the spontaneous emergence of something new that isn't defined to being something that is hyper-defined. And you can see this happen in capital in large scale. I like to talk VR, crypto, AI, all of these things, when they first started, were these open-ended questions of what this thing is. Like, you can say we all knew. No one fucking knew. It's fine. It doesn't matter. No one really knew when it first started where all these things would sort of go. VR was going to be Ready Player One, crazy, do whatever, running around on the, like, whatever it is. It's not feasible by the technology by any stretch. Yet this openness of like all the potential, all the things, there's this open field. We don't know. But then it ossifies, actualize, becomes a thing. This is, you see this happen in capital all the time. It's harder to spot when you talk about organized movements, but if you've ever been to a DSA meeting, you know exactly the same process. A bunch of people who, most people didn't start the DSA that they're in. They're DSA chapters that pre-exist every current member. Yet, everyone who joined wanted to join because they wanted to change things. And now it's a hierarchized organization with particular sets of things and rules and you got to do this. And they have very specific purity tests and setups, and don't speak out of turn, especially if you're not supposed to. These rules actually destroy revolutionary potential entirely. The revolutionary becomes a rupture and then is reclaimed through this process. And subjugated groups derive from revolutionary subject groups ongoing. It's always happening. The process and pressure of all these things, the transformation, is massive. You have pressure to create structure, because how will you do things? How will you represent people? When this is a thing you have to do. You have to talk on behalf of people. You have to define aims. You have to set up a manifesto of sorts. You have to set that up. You have to establish a hierarchy of leadership. This person's in charge. What are we going to do next? Well, here's who votes. Here's who chooses. Here's how we do it. You can't just allow anyone. What if the right-wingers come in and they do the wrong thing? What if someone doesn't really know what they're doing? You want to have experienced people doing it, don't you? So you need leadership. You need a hierarchy. You need people who know what they're doing, because other people are stupid and you need to be able to tell them what to do. And you have to defend it against everything else. Every single thing I've said is basically subjugation of desire in every single way. The setup that's being created here is a fixed socius, is a recording surface, is a thing that is pushing this way. It's always happening. Every process. One more axiom on the pile, one more axiom in the entire thing. That's all it takes. Capitalism's strategy, it incorporates all of these things. It's not going to confront it. It's not going to throw it out. It doesn't destroy it. It creates a new rule that enables it. It axiomatizes. Capital's fascinating. Capitalism does this all the fucking time. It doesn't give a shit. If something's popular, it'll take it and it will utilize it. And we can find ways to use it for capital primarily. There's no reason, whatever you may say about crypto, it's a technology, a minor technology. It's not even an interesting one in the long term, but it's a particular set of functions digitally. It's meme coins now for money laundering and gambling. It wasn't destined to become that. It's there because of this process that axiomatizes and destroys the sort of emergent sort of behaviors, crushing it into this direction, because that's the direction capital and all of these things go. It's labor movements have collective bargaining rights, because which put limits, by the way, on bargaining. Go ask anyone working in air traffic control how they're doing these days with their labor movements. Social democracy has the axiom of the welfare state. The communist parties or liberal parties, it's about legal opposition or illegal opposition. Who's legally allowed to challenge or not? This is an axiomatization of these things. The decolonization of countries is a axiom of peripheral capital, and how we can treat those countries and how we can build them and grow them into really good capitalist states, which doesn't decolonize at all, but it changes the relationship. All the things that are counterculture can be absorbed into culture through lifestyle marketing. Axiomatized. Socialism is state capitalism. It's a slightly different thing, but it doesn't, profit being derived in where isn't what drives capital. That's not the thing that does it. That's not what makes capitalism. Marx said that that's not the thing that makes capitalism. So we have a state in there. Yay! Every revolutionary threat, capitalism doesn't see as a threat. It just axiomatizes and moves on. Just continues its process. Its process is breaking down meaning, finding places for it, axiomatizing, and then inserting it. The entire thing. It's the mechanical, automated nature of the process. It's not a conspiracy. This is not 4 Jews in a cave. This is not 12 rich billionaires on Davos. This is just capitalism's structural operation. Add axiom, expand limits, reterritorialize the flux. Over and over and over. That's it. That's it. It's no more complicated than in the case of the abstract painting. I recommend Deleuze's, Lapoujade just finished translating Deleuze's On Painting lecture series. Goddamn, so good. Highly recommend it, because this is not a flippant or weird allegory or metaphor. They're being really specific. Look at abstract art. Early in the 20th century, right? Mondrian, Kandinsky, Malevich, right? The break from representation happened in art. There was this huge movement of abstract art. It's a thing. It's a specific thing in art history. It's particular. They're not fucking around with this. They're being specific. Those weird things broke away from figures as we knew it, moved to color and form almost purely. Google Mondrian, Mondrian. Everyone has seen his style or his painting. There's nothing there, but that's kind of the point. It's an artistic force almost purely itself. But what happened? Well, people theorized about it. They taught each other how to do these things. They moved it into the art community of commodities. They moved it to museums that defined it, put it in specific areas. It's got to go in a specific place. I mean, you can't just have paintings willy-nilly. People need to be grouping them. You don't want to put like a Michelangelo next to a Mondrian next to a Bacon. That would make no sense. You've got to have these areas. This is the classic area. This is the abstract. This is abstract in this time frame. This is specific things. This is suprematism, for example, or this is expressionism in the abstract school. Movements inside of these schools begin to form, right? They have programs themselves. They start to have aims of ways they're going to break away from this. So now we have a molecular expression movement, a rupture that now has a molar movement with an identity. An identity. And then the axiomatization comes along. Abstract painting is a commodity at some point. There's corporate lobby decorations, architecture firms that build Mondrian paintings into shoes and toys. The whole process was fully reabsorbed. Didn't happen the next day. It took a while. But now abstract art is seen as this high art in the full body of capital, which is the art market cultural capital shit. So it's no more complicated than abstract art. That's it. It's the same thing. It's the way that worked. Pick a thing. Pick a thing. Rap music. Phenomenal example. Originally very much born of poverty, pain, the black experience. And hey, it's Eminem is the one who represents it now, and it's one of the top things on Spotify. Yay. Like, it's no more complicated than that. It's political revolution, artistic avant-garde movements, or whatever it is. It's patterns repeat. It's the same process. This is what capitalism does. This is the functioning body of capital. This is not analogy. This is not metaphor.
a little
Yes.
bit chiming here. I just a little bit example, not disagreeing or agreeing. There was a big scandal in Eminem when Eminem and Janae, basically Michael Jackson's sister, was on the same stage. I don't know if people remember this, but I found it quite interesting where how Janae was the person that was a kind of attacked, but her singing career fell off. So there's quite a lot of
You mean
pain
Janet Jackson?
Yes. So this happened quite a while ago. I think this part is a very interesting example. I wasn't really paying attention to any kind of pop culture in this area, but I found it quite interesting how Eminem becomes kind of like a winner of that scandal, and then how he right on top of the fame and then become more popular afterwards. Just a little bit of it's a weird popular culture thing, but I'm curious what people think about it here.
I don't necessarily. It's
okay. It might not even be relevant, but it's still. I feel like there's a lot of strange history behind it that goes to people's expectations.
I'm trying to figure out what you're referring to ultimately. Because I don't remember him ever like having it out with Janet Jackson. I know he did his diss track in like the early 2000s that was like a running joke.
But the version I heard is that they were on the same stage, and then due to some kind of accident, Michael Jackson's sister like clothes fell off on the stage, and then that became a big scandal. That's the version I've heard. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily true, but
I have no idea.
There's almost like an either or between the two person for that scandal.
I have no idea. No clue. Not sure though it would fit in here because if it's so okay. The important thing here is that we're talking about revolutionary unconscious ruptures. So we're talking about genuinely new breakthrough things that sort of shatters how people understand the world. Abstract art did that, but also multiple movements in art have done that. Dubstep music. Everyone laughed when it first started because it was like seen as this silly, stupid, awful sounding thing. It kind of took off. But again, was recaptured very much through the identical process, because that process is the thing. The process of the new being brought into and bridled inside of the axiomatic system is the underlying thing that happens here, because it's a universal thing. Any revolution's trajectory. If we go back, we talk about punk music. Punk music is a phenomenal example of this as well. Ben Shapiro says conservatism's the new punk rock. So that's where we end up. Like to me, that's like death of punk moment, because as it's recaptured, it started out as explicitly like weirdos in basements that no one talked to, fist fighting each other and listening to music that wasn't popular. Over time, Capital found a way to reorganize, to put that in place, to create axiomatics around it. And then, and it's not a statement of saying, that Blink-182 or Green Day are sellout punk bands, but the music industry reappropriated, built as it does. And then ultimately punk music is kind of just another genre rather than any political movement in any meaningful sense at all. That shift is continuous. The transformation of subject groups, people who showed up at punk shows, they weren't punks, but they began to be organized as punks into subjugated groups. They became from a molecular desiring production into molar representation, from deterritorialized desire to reterritorialized. And that's the thing, the phrasing, they go through it. It's everything begins with Marx, continues with Lenin, ends with welcome, Mr. Brezhnev. That's the process we go through. The revolutionary break, the preconscious revolutionary organization, and then the reterritorialization. These are the 3 steps. And they laugh about it. And so they say, is this still a case of revolutionaries speaking to another revolutionary, or rather a village clamoring for a new prefect? It is, the dickishness doesn't really come through here, but it's a fucking great line. It's a stabby line. Are comrades addressing comrades? Is this what we're doing? Are revolutionaries addressing revolutionaries, or a village clamoring for new prefect? The difference is massive. 2 people who are revolutionaries who are speaking to each other have no care for what is above them or below them. They exist outside of that structure. A village clamoring for a new prefect is a very particular place of vertical relations within the subjugated authority. It is full-on supplication to power, looking for a better administrator, and accepting of administrative hierarchy itself. That's what the prefect system is, top-down appointment. Hey, can you send us a new mayor? This mayor sucks. I'm a revolutionary. And they smile. That's the thing. We've kind of moved revolutionary into this form. So the critique is, Mamdani's not revolutionary. He's reformist. Of course he is. Of course he is. And it's not, again, a knock on him. This is understanding how all of these things come together. This is not intended to be a condemnation. No one is a revolutionary. Get over your shit. This is not the thing they're driving at. They're saying the thing to understand is that we're talking about bringing in a new mayor, hoping that that changes things. That tomorrow we'll have a brand new thing. But that's not the setup. That's not the thing that happens. That's not revolution. And it's not how we get to revolution.
So it's a good example when Dahmer went to meet with Trump and become bros.
No, his entire existence is within the system. There is no revolutionary capacity within Mamdani, because he's literally being elected within a democratic system and capitalist system. That the very act of doing this is that thing. It is already organized and pre-placed. This is not saying, fuck Mamdani, we need someone who's only caring about whatever. This is not that. It is understanding the process of how capital grabs revolutionary desire and recaptures it and utilizes it in the axiomatic. His movement with Trump, these are positioning pieces on a chessboard, but that's the point. That's the point they're making. You're on a board, on a chessboard. There are particular rules, and you're maneuvering inside of that setup. This is not where you find revolutionary breaks. This is not how revolutionary breaks get formed. Someone may come up with a brilliant chess move that no one's ever seen before, and then everyone will have seen it after that. The rules of a game that become part of the meta, you're still within the rules of the game. You're not a revolution. The revolution would be playing a different game, or playing for a different game, or hacking the entire game, completely shifting things rather than just playing within it. And again, what this means, they don't really super go into, but they're being very particular, because they say, if we were to go back when it all started, how far back must we go for an answer? Lenin or Marx? Like, it's not just back to Brezhnev. No, we're already subjugated. Back to Stalin, back to Lenin, back to Marx. Does revolutionary theory itself already contain molar investment? Marx's analysis may have been molecular, like capital was desire machines, decoded flux, but scientific socialism, right? The Marxist-Leninists love this shit. The dictatorship of the proletariat, state withering, all these things. Marx was already in the place of molar organization with total preconscious aims. He's already there. So you can't find a moment where it went bad. Like, I think the sentence literally answers your question, JK. Like, there's no place, because the transformation is continuous. It's already there from the beginning. In the revolutionary rupture, which was Marx's theory, or Lenin's practice, the elements of future subjugation already operated and began. So they're suggesting that any organized revolutionary movement faces this danger. It's already built in. It's It's not avoidable through better leadership or correct theory, but it is the very nature of structure and organization itself that builds this in. So to get,
I think,
go for it.
yeah, I had a question. So it was kind of a, give me a second. It's I'm between like me and two other friends, and I have like a revolutionary idea. I guess I'm asking like, at what point does it fall within the capitalistic system? So if I'm like kind of just it already is. It doesn't even have a chance to become go from revolutionary to capitalistic. It's just already under that system.
It's in that system. It's and they're going to get into that. The next sentence is about JK's earlier question, which was about when Oedipus comes in and how it happens. The next little bit is about that. But like the challenge of it is like if we go to the abstract painting, for example, when did it get axiomatized? When was the revolutionary fervor like? Where was the poison pill inserted? Which tends to be the way that a lot of people talk about the purity of a pure revolution. How do you have a real revolution? Well, you have structure, you have this. Where's the moment this was inserted? We go back to the Russian Revolution. Was it Marx? Their question, was it Stalin? He's the one who fucked it up. Was it Lenin? He's the one who fucked it up. Was it Bolsheviks? They're the ones that fucked it up. Or was it Marx, who from the beginning already had these things built in? But Marx was the radical rupture. You could go back before that. You could say, well, he had impulses that were pushing in these. But at any moment where it becomes something we can speak of, where it is organized, because it has to be organized to be spoken of, you're already in the danger. Like you're already there. It's not avoidable by planning ahead or thinking already. You're sitting between your two friends and you have a bolt of genius and a way to change the world. But then you start speaking it. So where did it go back? Was it the speaking it? Well, that seems weird. Was it already where? Like where? And that's the next little bit they say. Will says, I'd like to point out a certain period of openness in signifiers and markers, just that there's a period in the labeling of punk before it loses its potential, becomes stable thing to manage. That open period is important. Hence Marx. Yes. So this is, but again, there is no point where it happened. It's a continuous process that the pieces are all already there. The parts are already there. The machine may not take it. It may not run with it quite yet. It may not be totalized from day one, but the pieces are there. So they say, and this is the ending. This is, there's a lot here. So it's good. This big paragraph. Here you go, JK. So true is it that the various investments, even when opposed, can coexist with one another in complexes that are not the province of Oedipus, but that do concern the socio-historical field, its pre-conscious and unconscious conflicts and contradictions, about which it can only be said that they fall back on Oedipus, Marx the father, Lenin the father, Brezhnev the father. I fucking love it. I love this. So, okay. How can revolutionary and reactionary investments coexist? Because they do. They coexist at the same exact time. It's because there are social historical complexes distinct from Oedipal family complexes. So Oedipal complexes is part of the capitalist system that puts us in the place where symbolization is made possible through the relations of family. We're taught first that family is how we relate to people, and through other people we relate to family. That man is like my father, like my mother, relates to me in the way like my dad. The relation that's built into the symbolism. But there's more than just that, because like the number one thing to remember through this book that they've tried, well, one of many, is that repression doesn't start with the family. Repression starts socially. The family is a conduit in that process, but repression starts there. So there are his social historical complexes distinct. So you can have and coexist in the same person a preconscious revolutionary investment, which is like anti-capitalism class consciousness. You can have unconscious reactionary investments, which is a libidinal attached to party sovereignty. I've met people who are this combination. You can have preconscious reformist investments of wage demands or slightly better laws or whatever it may be, or unconscious fascist investments, a love of the molar machine, a disinterested love directly. These don't cancel each other out. This is not the forces. The forces cancel each other out and they exist sort of in this odd wave sort of thing. But this is not that. These are preconscious. These are directed. These are more abstract. They're a step in that direction. These are not psychological contradictions. They're social historical contradictions. These are investments distributed across the social field. Right? Psychoanalysis tries to reduce everything to familial drama. This is the Oedipus conflict. This is Anti-Oedipus, the core idea of the book. But these investments are about social production first. They're about class struggle. They're about forms of sovereignty, degrees of force. This doesn't work in the sort of Oedipal triangulation. They don't function there. But psychoanalysis reduces them anyway. They still fall back on the Oedipal schema. So revolutionary attachment to Marx becomes father identification. Leninist organization becomes an Oedipalized authority. Brezhnev is seen as father figure, which he was for a large number of people. It's again, they're not saying this stuff doesn't exist. They're critiquing the production of all of these things because it's a different understanding shifts our grasp of how the machine works. Because psychoanalysis projects Oedipus onto this socio-historical field. So it makes social investments appear as familial conflicts. And this is the reduction that psychoanalysis does. Everything becomes Marx the father, Lenin the father, Brezhnev the father. The stages of Oedipal development, the three father positions, completely miss actual developments. The Marx as revolutionary theory. Lenin as the introduction of terror in the party apparatus. Brezhnev as the power of bureaucracy. Social formations. These are social formations, specifically. These are not familial positions, ever. And so you have this really strange thing happening where as they're kind of doing it, they're talking about in this sentence like that there is this coexistence of opposed investments rather than Oedipal complexes, that psychoanalysis reduces the social to the familial, and revolutionary figures become Oedipalized rather than analyzed socially or schizoanalytically. So they say fewer and fewer people believe in all this, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. Capitalism is like the Christian religion. It lives precisely from lack of belief. It does not need it. A motley painting of all that has been believed. And then we can finish this by getting back to that first question, the motley painting question. Because belief doesn't matter. Like, what do you believe? It doesn't fucking matter. Like, belief doesn't matter. Nobody believes. Revolutionary faith is gone at this point. Like, fucking come on. Like, workers do not believe in socialism. If you are a socialist, you don't really even believe in socialism. You believe in a directionality as a thing, but you're not, no one here believes revolution's coming tomorrow. You don't believe really in theory. Belief is gone. It's different. It's hollow than it was. It's irrelevant to the process because the system doesn't give a fuck about belief. You can be entirely cynical about capital. You can see through the complexity of it. You can be open about how it works and the pain of it and still participate perfectly fine in it. I mean, how many people here eat meat knowing factory farms work as they do? How many people here are using electronics knowing how sulfur mines function? Like, you still participate. Disbelief also doesn't change anything. Capitalism doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. You go do you. That's fine. It doesn't really care at all. And then compare it to Christianity, because this is a long-running thread of a lot of thinkers. Pascal's wager, the idea of acting as if you believe and belief will follow. Why not believe? Because blah, blah. It's Kierkegaard, I think, said it best. Someone asked me about Kierkegaard yesterday. So I ended up reading it, but like faith requires infinite resignation. People don't believe, but they have to act as though they believe. That Christianity organizes practice independent of belief. They have rituals, internal economic systems, and activity. These things precede your beliefs, right? And they live precisely because of the lack of belief. That's how they function. It's not despite the lack of belief. It's because the lack of belief is there. This is Sloterdijk. This is one of the few things I think that's really interesting Sloterdijk talks about is through cynical reason. They know very well what they're doing, but still they do it. There's the way that Christianity functions, but that's not just Christianity, it's capitalism. Capitalism thrives on a cynicism, a disillusionment, an ironic distance from the thing. Your disbelief makes you more complicit. You can't even claim you're naive at that point. You're just complicit. And capitalism is sustained this way because it prevents reactionary action. A cynicism paralyzes desire, always. It just does. It enables participation without guilt. I'm just doing my job, just following orders, Steve. Just following orders. Just following orders. Zizek's horseshoe. And it's not a true story, but it's a Niels Bohr line Zizek used. It's great. It's a great one for this. Niels Bohr supposedly was doing an interview, and he was showing around he had this big piece of land. He had a big barn. They get to the barn, and there's a horseshoe that's upside down. And the reporter asked Niels Bohr, who is, we'll just say not a mystic, is a famous physicist, very science, logical, positive, mental person, supposedly on the surface, asked, why do you have this horseshoe? And he said, oh, it keeps out evil spirits. And the reporter just asked him, like, what the fuck? Surely you don't fucking believe in evil spirits. And he said, no, of course not. But I was told it works even if I don't believe in them. Fucking what a great line. I don't care who wrote that line or if it's true or not. If Niels Bohr said it, kudos. But the idea underneath it is kind of how it functions. You're building in this way. You're doing this thing. Your disbelief is reterritorialization. Desire stays within the system despite consciousness of the system's empty sort of reality. It's a motley painting of all that has been believed. This museum of dead beliefs that is capital, the pastiche of all of them. It's an assemblage, an arrangement of all of the images of every ideology, revolution, religion, everything stripped of their libidinal power and turned into these images, pure images. It's Karl Marx on t-shirts, Che Guevara on t-shirts, Jesus Christ on a cross in a fucking necklace, ecology and ecological terrorism and the death of society in t-shirt form. Everything is a lifestyle choice now. It's an identity marker. It's a commodity. The motley surface of capital axiomatizes everything ever believed, stated, or pushed, and empties it of libido and represents it back to you. Welcome, Mr. Brezhnev. The joke they've now made twice. And Brezhnev was the end of, like, super bureaucrat of the sort of end of the USSR. Like, I know technically he wasn't. He had another 20 years to go, but the 70s were not a strong time for the USSR, I would say. But like Mr. Brezhnev showing up, the Communist Party of France didn't like love the guy. They didn't believe he was their savior, but they have to perform their identity. Brezhnev doesn't embody socialism. He represented it. He knew it was hollow. They knew it was hollow. That doesn't fucking matter. Trumpers, no. They know. Don't think they're fucking stupid. And you can say that. That's great. And it makes you feel much better. But no one believes Mamdani is going to save the world. We all know this. No one says otherwise. He's going to be mayor of one minor city. Yay. And even then, he's just one of a multitude of political actors in a space, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. He's not saving the world, but we know this. We talk about him different way, though. We know it's hollow. Doesn't matter. The mechanism of all of this functions without belief. NYC is not a minor city. It's not a country. It's not the world. He's not a dictator of the world. He's a minor, tiny part. There's only not even 1% of the humanity of the world lives there. As far as cities go, it's a major city. As far as that, you have to say that, Raiko, is my point. As far as cities go, yes, but he's not going to change the world. The point is, he's not the thing. We know this. Everyone knows this, but we're performing it anyway. We do this. This is the way that capital is representing things back to us. The mechanism functions because there's no belief. Revolution cannot rely on consciousness. It can't rely on critique. It can't rely on unmasking or having the right ideas or the right setup. It has to rely on the unconscious libidinal investments of desiring production. It has to create subject groups that function differently, not just believe differently. Belief is irrelevant. It has to function differently. Otherwise, it's within the same system, doing as the system wants, as a cog in the system. Slightly different shaped cog in the same place, still does the job of the cog, maybe misses a step or two. Maybe that changes something down the road. Sure. It's not revolution. It's not revolution. Libidinal transformation is the base of it. That's probably how I'd phrase that. Libidinal transformation is the sort of base of that. This doesn't mean not to support these people. Again, there's a lot to be said about not simply giving up, because that's, again, capitalism, give a fuck, have fun. This is not to say that nothing is good and that you shouldn't be reforming or that we shouldn't be trying to make people's lives better. They're taking square aim at the larger idea of what revolution is. The idea that revolution is something that we can have when we reveal the truth to people is stupid. Mamdani coming along is going to be good for people in New York, I believe. I do. And I think if people support him and they make the voice heard, they create political pressure to give him the power to do what he's doing, I think it'll have major positive change. Sure, I like people being in a better situation. It's not revolution. But also, by the way, the people who are not voting, that ain't revolution either. The people who are screaming that Mamdani is just not perfect enough, that we need someone who truly wants to change things. The people who scream about what we really needed was someone in the Democratic Party who'd say exactly what I wanted. That's not revolution. Stop lying to yourselves. Stop deluding yourselves. None of that's revolutionary. Revolution would be a whole other game. You're still playing this one. In this game, there's no revolution. That's the only shift. Capitalism's there. I have to do the next paragraph because I can't end on the downer because the reverse is true and it's the next paragraph. We're doing the next paragraph. I feel like I need to get more tea.
Before you do the next paragraph.
Say what?
Before you do the next paragraph.
Please.
I just want to add as an addendum to my question about motley.
Mm-hmm.
I did dig up my Swedish translation of Anti-Oedipus, and they use the word brokig, which when I use it in a sentence like brokig skara, feels like literally a translation of motley crew. So what I'm saying is that I feel like this word is every bit as versatile in my native language as it is in English or French. So we can argue about details, how it's applied, but the way I see that, yeah. No, this is a great word. It's a versatile, hard to translate word.
Yeah, it's it's not an easy one, to say the least. It's not an easy one, and it's one of those that, like, because the word beguerie tends to be translated so often as motley, all of the systems or automatic translation systems that you're going to use are going to just go for that. And I think the underlying thing that's important is to understand, like, the original French one, they don't use motley. Motley is very much an English and like that language setup. Beguerie, variegated, panache, disparate, patchwork, very colored, the colorful painting, but colorful not in the color, but like a multitude of colors, a patchwork of colors. Not that there is a point to any of them, again, thrown together. The very specific ways that it works, I think, would be, it's the tough part of doing all this. It's one of the reasons I kind of, so frustrating. But it's like, diverse. It's tough. Motley is a good translation word for it. It's just it itself is sort of unknown. It's a word people don't actually know how to say. Like, people use it and they just like, yeah. So it's yeah. It's just an old word. I'm finding, as I'm digging around, I'm finding that it's tied to, like, the old word for, like, the Pied Piper. Pied? Which is, again, more like, again, motley fool. Right? The motley. That's where these things come from. It's very frustrating.
What I'm thinking is the crew of the Pequod in Moby Dick, like the whaling crew. Is that a motley crew?
If memory serves, they actually go about talking about how the crew formed, and that it sort of is more happenstance, and everyone is very varied. Like, the nature of it being varied is the point. Again, we go back, the motley fool, the Pied Piper, it has to do with there being simply multiple colors. And it's the eye-catching, high contrast thing. Multicolored clothing is what it means. Like pied or motley. That's where it comes from originally.
I just want to say 100% the crew of the Pequod are a motley crew. I have a friend writing a paper on it at the moment. Absolutely nailed on.
Well, I'm less confident because I learned the other day that mostly from the world's greatest pedant, President Sunday, who made a comment that the first words of Moby Dick are not "call me," but instead some bullshit about what a whale is. Because I didn't realize, I just realized maybe I've never heard of the book and I've stopped.
Okay, the reason I asked was because I like that book a lot, but I remember that the crew were from multiple different ethnicities, and that the character Ishmael was from New England, but then Kikeg, however you say it, was a
Kikeg is a big black guy.
Polynesian,
Polynesian
something.
Yeah,
and
but
they are literally
they were
multicolored,
like Spanish, and even specifically Nigerian. I think one of the. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think they specifically mentioned that one of the sailors was Nigerian.
Sorry,
It's beside the
colorful,
point.
like literally colorful.
Tiny crew.
But it tends to have, so again, motley has that secondary meaning. And so there's a little bit more there. It all kind of works, and I'm not going to be too specific on saying it's not, but it has that secondary bit where it's like, it's colorful. The crew very much was multicolored. That's not really what motley directly means, but it kind of plays with that because it's about the internal relations of those colors as they play. When we talk about the same phrasing for béret, it's the same thing. It's variegated, the varied colors, a patchwork of colors, multiple colors that are themselves sort of play in differently. Pied is the term that it comes back to in a lot of this, and it's with the Pied Piper. It's about, again, it's not literally about attracting children, but it's the kind of thing that is like attractive or like, huh? The Motley Fool were colors that were standing out because they were clashing, but they were together. So there's a lot of things happening in these words. It's why it's kind of a cool one. It's a great mention though. Like I think the crew of the ship in Moby Dick would actually work really nice.
Brooks, do you remember the conversation a little while back about Las Meninas?
Yes.
The painting.
I do.
Well, when Captain Ahab holds up the doubloon, every member of the ship, of the crew, sees it in their own particular way. It's kind of the same. It's this reversal where everyone's looking back at the capital, the thing, the sovereign. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that is an awesome scene. Man, I don't want to go back and reread that fucking book. God damn it.
Too damn long.
And it is great, but it's not that great. Like, it is great, though. I appreciate it. It's just not for me, I guess, to reread again. In Search of Lost Time, incredibly long. Holy fuck, I get so much out of all the different parts. Moby Dick has less of that, in my opinion, but still great. Yeah, it's my opinion. I
saw a very funny quote about it. Basically, Moby Dick is like, some people go on a fishing trip and everyone dies.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's yeah, kind of pithy. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do the next paragraph. We're gonna do this, I think. Yeah, why not? Let's fucking do it. Any last comments before I demand that we move on and I just start reading and just bowl over everything else that's going on? YouTube, anything going on your side in your world? Let's see. Anything wrong with any of the movie adaptations of Moby Dick? I mean, you can't. I'm sure they're fine. I do not believe it's possible to make a film out of that book and like not miss something. You can probably get on something, like you can be the version of Moby Dick that hits this one theme, but it has a lot going on.
It would need to be a 6-season miniseries at least.
Yeah, and even then, you're gonna miss. It's Lord of the Rings is like my favorite example of like and I consider Lord of the Rings to be fully the trilogy, brilliant filmmaking. It's not possible to capture everything that's in the books, but the film version of things captures what film versions of the thing does. The book version captures different things because the mediums necessarily are different. Even if you were to do it perfectly, you're not going to be able to get what the book does.
Yeah, I feel like my favorite parts of Moby Dick are the ones where the language just flows so incredibly, like, though neither knows where lies the nameless things of which the mystic signs leave for such hints. I don't know how you would capture that in the filming.
Well, you'd have to, like, someone on YouTube's making the joke is like, basically it would be the narrator in a dark room reading the entire book. Like, that's what the movie is, basically, because that's the only way to capture it correctly. Probably not far from true. And it's the only way you'd get a lot of that across. All right. So we just finished talking about capitalism completely fucking us. Doesn't matter if you believe. Motley painting of all that's been believed. But the reverse is also true. Capitalism is constantly escaping on all sides. Its productions, its art, its science form decoded and deterritorialized flux that do not merely submit to the corresponding axiomatic, but cause some of their currents to pass through the mesh of the axiomatic, underneath the recordings and reterritorializations. Subject groups, in their turn, derive from subjugated groups by way of ruptures in the latter. Capitalism is continually cutting off the circulation of flux, breaking them and deferring the break. But these same fluxes are continually overflowing, intersecting one another according to schizzes that turn against capitalism and slash into it. Capitalism, which is always ready to expand its interior limits, remains threatened by an exterior limit that stands a greater chance of coming to it and cleaving it from within. In proportion as the interior limits expand. That is why the lines of escape are singularly creative and positive. They constitute an investment of the social field that is no less complete, no less total than the contrary investment. The paranoiac and the schizoid investments are like two opposite poles of unconscious libidinal investment, one of which subordinates desiring production to the formation of sovereignty and to the gregarious aggregate that results from it, while the other brings about the inverse subordination, overthrows the established power, subjects the gregarious aggregate to the molecular multiplicities of the production of desire. And if it is true that delirium is coextensive with the social field, these two poles are found to coexist in every case of delirium, and fragments of schizoid revolutionary investment are found to coincide with blocks of paranoiac reactionary investment. The oscillation between two poles is a constituent aspect of the delirium. So this is there's an uplifting direction. Because the last one's, what a fucking bummer. What a fucking bummer. Not a bummer. The reverse is true. Capitalism constantly escaping on all sides. So, we just went through. Capitalism absorbs everything, every revolutionary movement, and every done. But wait, there's actually an instability here, because the reverse is also true. It produces escapes faster than it can contain them. It's not a negation of the previous analysis. They are not saying the previous thing we said is not accurate. They are adding this to complement it, coextensive of it. These are movements that operate simultaneously. Revolutionary subject groups turn into subjugated groups and become axiomatized. Capitalism produces deterritorialized flows, escapes its own axiomatic. These are not contradictory elements. These are processes viewed from different perspectives, different angles, different modes. And that constantly escaping from all sides is the instability of the system. It is metastable, like all of them, like every metastable, like every major system that is anything of note, but it is fundamentally unstable. It's deterritorializing movement. The thing that defines it as a thing exceeds reterritorialization. It escapes on all sides. And why? Well, it must deterritorialize to function, right? We just went through this. It's revolutionizing production, decoding the flux, breaking the barriers. But deterritorialization produces effects itself that capitalism doesn't have the ability to control itself. It's not an all-seeing, all-knowing Sauron eye. Flux is not convertible as such, not appropriate as such. It is inherently excess. So most revolutionary systems in history, right? It's capitalism. It destroys all traditional forms. It breaks every barrier. It's true revolutionary systems itself, but also the most brutally repressive because it has to constantly recapture what it unleashes. This is structural. This is structural. This is structural. They go on. Its productions, its art, its science form decoded and deterritorialized fluxes that do not merely submit to a corresponding axiomatic, but cause some of their currents to pass through the mesh of the axiomatic, underneath the recordings and reterritorializations. Good. This is good. There's a little bit of phrasing around some of this. Do not merely submit is an odd phrasing. It's only submit. They do not only submit. It merely adds flavor to that. I'm not sure. I buy in the original French. And then I have a note here that it's not really underneath, but under, beneath. There's a small difference, but it's a whole thing. I have a whole set of notes on this stupid shit. It doesn't matter. Okay. So, where capitalism's escape occur is the subject of this sentence. Production. Yes, production. Industrial production. Art. Science. These are domains where decoded fluxion is necessary for the function of capital. Production, as a thing, requires the full breakdown of qualitative codes. Absolutely does. It needs innovation in every step. Hey, I made a better mousetrap. There you go. That's it. I created a picture people like. I made food people like. I figured out a new way to do it. I built a new system to do a thing. I make it better. Whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's all of these things have to be broken from traditional codes to function in capitalism. Once they are decoded, they're not controlled. Not fully. That's not what happens here. That's not the setup. So in production, this is breaking down. Art, abstract painting earlier. We talked about abstract painting a moment ago. Yes, it is fully deterritorialization of the way art worked at the time. It broke the codes of the systems. It was a full rupture, absolutely, despite being later axiomatized. The thing is, it wasn't fully recaptured. Abstract art was. Categorized it, placed it, but there is still something uncaptured in that. There is still a molecular force that went on to fully be free itself. Same of science. Science requires to function universal principles. Experimental method that is purely abstracted. Peer review, mathematics, biology, physics, all these things, they deterritorialize traditional codes. That's what science does. I don't want to talk about it. Science does that. But once that knowledge is made, once we have new measurements, new systems, new things, new inventions, they actually circulate beyond just the normal usage. Think of medicine. They find a medicine that does X, but then they have off-label usages. The knowledge of how that medicine was produced does other things. The knowledge of that physics does other things. These things become off-label. Unintended consequences become a thing. They don't merely or only submit to a corresponding axiomatic. The flux of everything, the flux of the axiomatized things are not fully axiomatized. They're only partially submissive. They're only partially submissive. The phrase they use, they instead cause some of their currents to pass through the mesh of the axiomatic, which I really like as a phrasing, the mesh of it, the interstices, the traverse, the mesh, the interrelated way that all of these axiomatics come together still has holes in it. There's still holes in it. The net or the grid that is attempting to capture this flux is doing a good job of it, but it still has holes. And some things pass through. They escape axiomatization because the axiomatic has to leave openings to function. Capitalism cannot survive without the new, without the innovative, without creativity, without experimentation. You cannot simply code everything or the system would stop moving. You need to maintain liquidity. You need to maintain liquidity, or capitalism stops working. Codes don't have liquidity. Sorry for the economic term. That's the way I would phrase that. Beneath the surface of recapture, molecular flux operate. The reterritorialization thing, it's a superficial one. It covers, but it doesn't eliminate it. It still is there. It's still pulsing. It's still doing its thing. And they go on to say, remember we just talked about subject groups, people who happen to be Mamdani supporters, become subjugated groups. I am a Mamdani supporter, and suddenly that group means something. Well, at the same time, subject groups, in turn, derive from subjugated groups by way of ruptures in the latter. Subjugated groups aren't eternal. They break apart. They fuck up all the time. This is not a one-way degeneration where subject groups become subjugated groups. No, the subject groups fuck up and blow apart all the time. The Democratic Party is a great example of this. It's not a monolithic thing. It's exploding constantly. So very much. But this is like, what are communists? Jesus Christ. As a thing. Artistic movements break from the institutions that form them, and they form new movements that then in turn become institutionalized, but then in turn form new breaks. Scientific paradigms get formed that create institutions, but they do that by rupturing established frameworks created by institutions that were once brand new scientific paradigms. This process is constant. It is a reciprocal, ongoing back and forth. There is no totality ever that says, oh, it's over. You're just subjugated. Nope. It is a continuous back and forth. Subject groups become subjugated groups, which break apart into subject groups, which become subjugated groups, which break apart. There's no state of any of this. And again, as I said before, no one is just a subject group. You move between them. You're constantly shifting. You may be part of multiple subject groups and subjugated groups at once. This is ongoing. It's ongoing. So they say, capitalism is continually cutting off the circulation of flux, breaking them, deferring the break. But these same flux are continually overflowing and intersecting one another according to schizzes that turn against capitalism and slash into it. Cutting off here is not like with a knife. It's not cutting off. That's not what they mean by cutting off. They mean cutting off circulation. Tourniquets. Tourniqueting. You're cutting off the flow of blood. That's what they mean by cutting off. They're cutting off the circulation of flows, not slicing it off, cutting off the circulation of flows, deferring the break.
They're restricting.
Restricting is a good way to put it. Yeah. Faire garrot. They literally mean garroting, like stranglehold, strangling. They're making a stranglehold. Is the original French, faire garrot. And garroting is a pretty particular, horrific way to die, but a particular thing. And the overflowing is exceeding boundaries. So there is, in capitalism's containment of the flux, there is like this really odd dynamic struggle taking place. Because again, we have a lot of double movements. You've heard me say that a few times. You've probably seen it written in here. They say double movement a lot. There's a reason Lapoujad's work on Deleuze is called aberrant movements. They're being very particular about thinking about the forces and how literal movement, they mean this quite seriously, this dynamic struggle about the containment and the escape of flux. So the containment strategy is the tourniqueting, the cutting off of the flow, the restriction of movement. We have borders. We have certain licenses that require people to work in certain places. You control the circulation of labor, you control circulation of capital, you control circulation of intellectual property with laws or surveillance or debt or wage labor. all of those things. Or it breaks them rather than just restricting them, interrupting it wholly. This breaking is an interruption, a fragmentation, a segmentation. Or it postpones the break, defers the break, because it's not really about a complete rupture, but management of that sort of setup. This maintains the system from sort of a final explosion, which is kind of a big deal. But the paradox is that it must break these things to defer the break. To manage, instead of having systemic collapse, it has to constantly be doing this. It's a controlled demolition ongoing. You want to break, but you don't want to destroy the city. Right? You don't want to destroy everything around it. You've got to be controlled. You've got to be considerate about how you do it. And the flux has a counter movement. It's continually overflowing. Again, continual being the thing. There's this constant, everlasting pressure of overflowing and breaking through that mesh, through all those holes. And the flux, it's not just some flux or a flow of labor here or anything else that hits together to make this flux. These things intersect constantly. And these things form networks of forces, combinations, alliances that you just are unexpected, contingent, sort of random. But when they intersect, these new intensities and new possibilities form that produce new, which is great for capital, but it's the counter movement necessary for it. And these things also, though, can be schizzes, which are, again, breaks and cuts and ruptures that are not capitalist. The schizzes are breaks and cuts and ruptures. Capitalism does this to manage, but the schiz does it before there's a reason for it. Oh, I want to make sure that we have Americans, we need to make sure we're stopping inflation. So I'm going to put tariffs on everything. Whether or not it's really, really stupid, and it is, that's for a reason. You're restricting flow here, breaking flow here, this thing. The schiz doesn't have that. Not that goal. Remember, it's a big deal here. It was this schizoid. It's not paranoiac. It still breaks and cuts, but it's got a different logic than the capitalist breaks. This is schizoid, not paranoiac breaks. These turn against capital. They slash into it. These attack capitalism directly. It's not an external enemy. It's internal contradictions. Here they are. There you go. This is finally there. This is the internal contradictions. They turn against capitalism. They slash into it. This is things that play inside of capital and naturally don't work and constantly are doing that until an axiomatic can handle that and then moves to the next stage. They do it over. It's a violent image. Capitalism is a full body trying to strangle the flows or let it go over and over to maintain this perfect amount. Well, they're still overflowing and slashing back, cutting the body of capital and wounding it as it's wounding them. It is back and forth constantly. And capitalism, always ready to expand its interior limits, remains threatened by an exterior limit that stands a greater chance of coming to it and cleaving it from within, in proportion as the interior limits expand. A lot of jargon, interior, exterior limits. Again, think of this, they're being very specific when they talk about this topologically and physically and all of this. The internal limits are barriers internal to the capitalist system, the system, the logical system itself, the ontological system of capitalism that continually are surpassed. So, for example, your city, once upon a time, had only a marketplace that affected its city, your town or whatever. What you would pay for a house is what anyone in that town could afford. But then it became a city. So it's whatever anyone in that city could afford. So the prices changed and the market sort of became a state market. Well, then it became a national market. And then ultimately that limit became a global market, right? This is an internal limit. There are barriers internal to capitalism that capitalism is continually surpassing, but reproducing those same limits on larger scales. National markets to global markets. It's diagrammatically the same thing, but they're not identical. It's a movement. Individual capital once upon a time, mercantilism or the patron system, all the way to corporate capital to now the weird fascist mix of state sovereign wealth funds that we have as capital that mostly power things. Fuck me. But it's the same, diagrammatically the same thing. You'd have people producing crafts and the limits of that to industrial automation, to full automation. The traditional labor evolving into the gig economy. Capitalism is always ready to expand these built-in logical limits to itself. And every expansion allows for new accumulation. They call it interior here because the limit is to capitalism. It's within and produced by capitalism's actual operations. Its own operations make it, its own operations push it back, its own operations deal with it. So that's internal limits, right? But
Question about that.
Please.
Yeah. A few sessions ago, we were talking about the internal movement, like the internal play of
Yes.
systems. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Same thing.
I recognize that in the most of the book, they describe this as displacement, internal displacement.
Mm-hmm. The limits are displaced, yes.
Yeah, so we were talking about what was the word again? Like c'est limite antérieure. Like the internal limits are the limits within they can move as a displacement, as in play,
Yes.
play in the wind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their rules
Why doesn't
internal to the system. So they Go has one of my favorite examples of this, maybe of all time. It's a very famous story. If you've never played Go, it's like the simplest game ever made and also the most complicated. It's why I adore it. It's a game where you put down white or black little dots, and the way it works is you have this huge grid and you try to capture your opponent's dots. I'm not going to explain it much more than that, but the thing is the rules don't have a lot of rules. You take your turn. The board can never return to a state it once was, once it's changed. There's some really light, but it's like 4 rules that make up all of Go. So there's this really weird thing that happened, though. Because games of Go at the master level would happen to go multiple days, what they didn't want to do is they didn't want to have the person who ends the day make a move, and then the person who's counter moving have all night to be able to think about what he wants to do in response. So what they would do, to be polite about it, is the person who was about to make a move, the last move of the night, would put their move in an envelope and give it to the judge. The judge then the next morning would make the move for that person, and then the person would continue to play, the opposition. This is an incredible moment. There was a young guy, a young upstart master, who was playing, and he was set to win the tournament. He wasn't the best, but he was very, very good. And what he did is he actually, and the rules of Go internal to itself are very like social and complex. I've stated the main rules, but internal to it, I've now talked about this overnight system. That's not internal to the rules of Go, but it's part of Go. It's part of the way these master tournaments worked. And this guy made a move that was the last move, that was going to be the last move of the night, or that was kind of prefacing for the next guy, that forced his opponent to make a move in one specific place. He had no choice. It's a long story of how Go works. The guy realized that the overnight he would have to do this move, which meant that his opponent would have all day the next day and all night to figure out the move against him. The old master resigned on the spot. He quit immediately and declared he refused to play anymore because the spirit of the game was destroyed. Now they've completely changed that rule again, but that rule was internal. The logic of Go at large at tournaments was a certain way. Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, pick a fucking game that has a tournament set up, and the rules of tournament that they have to add because someone takes advantage of unknown combinations of things or figures out a way to do. I watched one on Yu-Gi-Oh where this guy created basically a game that if he drew the right 3 cards, he could literally just play for like 2 hours and it would ruin the ability of they'd have to resign, which is a dick thing to do at these tournaments. But he did it, and they ended up changing the rules. The logic internal to the system that can move. This is what they're talking about, because there was no rule against that thing, but no one did it. But now that rule is pushed out, okay, well, now the rule encompasses this. Now the system encompasses this. Now it's a little bit further. Constantly the new being made that creates new production, new possibilities, and then they have to create a rule that pulls back. It's this constant internal logic system. Does that make sense? Michael? Because that's the phrasing.
Yeah, it does make sense. I was just trying to think of ways to generalize this to be about not just Go or games in general.
I mean, games are great for this because games are great for this because they generally rely on unspoken rules, but they are systems of defined rules. It's why it's a great, it's not even an analogy. This is really how capitalism functions. We don't understand all the rules we actively take part in. So, for example, there was nothing stopping people from having steam engines in the 3rd century AD. There's no reason for that. The reason they didn't build steam engines was because they didn't have metallurgy at the strong enough point. They knew steam worked the certain way it did. They built stupid little gadgets and all kinds of dumb shit. They would use it to open doors and do funny stuff and weird shit. But they didn't have steam engines for power. But they had all of the stuff. It's not like they were on a different planet than we were. The rules of the system were what they knew, but the unspoken parts of it that were continually breaking, this is what capitalism plays with. It breaks rules in order to allow new systems to form and pushes out that internal limit of what's possible within the system.
Yeah, and could you say that this set of possible ways to engage with it is sort of like a body that lacks internal organization? Like a body without organs?
Yeah. I mean, it's presuming, and this is one of those things that's
I'm thinking about the Brian J. Smith definition of the body without organs, that it's a description of all the things a body could do if it was not trapped in its own homeostatic processes. Don't remember exactly.
This is the I like to talk about it. We talk about the unconscious as being the psychological thing. We don't often talk about the somatic side of it because we tend to think of the unconscious as being directly related to the brain and self, but your body also has an unconscious, and that way that you exist, what is capable, what you're able to do at any point is only determined and what you're aware of by the things you've done. And that's the body without this is the function of that. The body without organs is the totality of potential, and then you basically record on this surface and limit it. And capital's doing this. Capital is living currency. Klosowski gives an amazing sort of breakdown of the way that waste is generated in experimentation. And it's one of my favorites because people don't think about, if I'm building a factory, if you've never seen, go watch How It's Made, these incredible automation factories where they make anything, and the shit goes in one place and then it has this tube that cuts it in a certain way and this other thing that mashes it a certain way and then puts it, and all these steps, that didn't just come whole cloth. No one knew how to do this. Someone had to try, and each of those machines separately had to be tried. So there's actually a lot of, we didn't know what we were doing, building a machine, trying it, and then someone succeeded. All those prototypes are waste. We don't call them that. We consider it part of that sort of built-in thing. But all of that is us rediscovering what things can do and building new with them. And this is the thing at large that we're talking about socially. That's the drive here. This is the internal limit, is the thing capitalism's always ready to expand. Things that are built into its logic, even if we don't know it. Because we don't have to know that there's this limitation in Go. We don't have to know that in Dota there's a fountain hook, because of the way that these things emergently interact. Some people figure it out and they just use it. This emergent interaction that can then be recaptured is still built into that logic of capitalism. But this is an internal limit. We also have the external limit, and this is a genuinely external limit. This is something that would require capitalism's total abolition to surpass, period. This is not a barrier to expansion. It is the limit to capitalism as such, fundamentally. Okay? Like it's a completely different limit. It's external limit versus the internal. The decoded flux itself is this. The schizophrenia as process is this, not the schizophrenic. The schizophrenic is produced. It's a production. It's a product of capitalism. But schizophrenia, the schiz, is this limit. Desiring production, once it has escaped axiomatization entirely, is this limit. The paradox is that they say in proportion as interior limits expand, as capitalism expands and adds axiom and enlarges markets, external limit becomes more threatening because more expansion means more deterritorialization, means more decoded flux, which means more escaping through that mesh, which pushes the interior limit, right, towards this exterior limit that ultimately capitalism can't get beyond. And this expansion that is happening here becomes more complex. And with every complexity, it adds more ability for things to emerge. It's more vulnerable to the schiz. Every reterritorialization produces new deterritorialization potential in reaction. And this is the fundamental contradiction at the base of capitalism. This is why people talk about accelerationism. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what we're talking about, but they talk about it because if you can do things that push capitalism to its limit, but that's not what they're doing. They're just doing more capitalism. So if you're already doing stuff within that limit, happy day. You need to break the limit. You need to continually deterritorialize, but not in a way that is within the system. Not in a way within the system. And that's, they say, that is why the lines of escape are singularly creative and positive. They constitute an investment in the social field that is no less complete and no less total than contrary investment. This is not that lines of escape are just this negative, destructive, utopian thing. No, at all. They're singularly creative. They're exceptionally so. They're more creative than they may appear. They are those forces that push things to change. They're this affirming process. They're not reactive, right? The lines of escape affirm the BWO, the full body, the body without, not the full body, but the body without organs. It affirms the molecular flux. It is not defined by what it opposes. It is affirmed through what it produces. This is Spinoza's increasing potentius. That's what that is. This is Nietzsche's will to power of affirming life. Lines of escape are not escapist. They're not nihilistic. They're not individualist. It's not that they don't change anything, that they are productive. The escape is the revolution. They're not changing something out there. The escape itself is revolution, not preparation for it. Right? Like, I don't know, they say they're constitutive. They constitute an investment of the social field. The lines of escape are social investments. This is not a personal line of escape. You're not escaping. Stop that. The lines of escape invest the entire social field with revolutionary desire. It is not about escaping society as a person. Stop that. But about transforming how social production operates through a schizoid investment that completely shifts that. No less complete, no less total than contrary. It's as totalizing as paranoiac reactionary investments. It is no less complete. They both invest the entire social field. Both are total libidinal positions. These are not partial or incomplete things versus a complete paranoiac thing. No. These are total investments in opposition of form. So revolutionary investment isn't a utopian dream versus this reactionary paranoiac reality. No. It's actual libidinal force that is coextensive with the social field, operating right fucking now, constituting a true alternative, a true alterity. The schizophrenic flux capitalism produces, those are revolutionary potential. They're not just future possibilities. That's not what they're playing with here. The paranoiac and schizoid investments are like two opposite poles of unconscious libidinal investment, one of which subordinates desiring production to the formation of sovereignty and the gregarious aggregates that result from it, while the other brings about the inverse subordination, overthrows established power, subjects the gregarious aggregate to the molecular multiplicities of the production of desire. The paranoiac pole subordinates desiring production to representation, to formation of sovereignty. Schizoid pole inverts that. Sovereignty is in subordination to desiring production, representation to desiring production. It's molar to molecular. Desire captures power instead of being captured by power. It is not different contents. This is a opposition in relation between forces. And again, both invest the entire social field. They bring it back, the fourth thesis of schizoanalysis, the two poles, the paranoiac and the schizo. The distinction between them is very, very particular, but they're poles of the same field with opposite charges. The mutual repulsion, but they constitute a field. You cannot eliminate one pole without eliminating the field itself. Period. And if it is true that delirium is coextensive with the social field, if it is true delirium is coextensive with the social field, these two poles are found to coexist in every case of delirium, and fragments of schizoid revolutionary investment are found to coincide with blocks of paranoiac revolutionary investment. Delirium is particular here. This is how people view and understand the social field, the delirium, the shared delirium. Trump's going to save us. Mamdani will save us, whatever. It doesn't matter. Delirium is coextensive with the social field. This is not tossing these things away. It's, again, the two-pole structure applies to delirium here. It's both investments are delirium in varying proportions. Again, you can't get rid of one part of that. The investment is both. The process is both. Every delirium is the social historical reality. It's investing races, nations, classes, regimes, history itself. This is Judge Schreber, right? God, sun, nerves, Jews, blacks, nations, the cosmic order, whatever. It wasn't family drama. It's world historical social investment. And these are the same extension. This is the same scope of everything. It is the entire social field that is delirium. This is not a subset. Delirium may be delirious, but it is fucking real. It is actual social forces. But it's social forces according to libidinal logic, rather than libidinal being transformed into rational interest. The delirium versus the interest. The two poles coexist in every delirium. It's not pure paranoid. It's not schizoid. That's not the setup we're talking about here. That's not what they're driving at. And the oscillation between the two poles is a constituent aspect of the delirium. The movement between the poles is essential. Delirium can't function without it. You don't deviate from some pure state. The oscillation between the two poles is how we have our vibes around the world. You have to have those. The oscillation, again, is not accidental. It's constitutive of these things. It is the oscillation. This isn't a separation. It's not, delirium sometimes has like an oscillation, or oscillation, yeah, when you do it this way, that way is delirium. No. Oscillation constitutes delirium. Because, again, neither pole exists in pure form. There is no such thing as a positive pole and a negative pole in a magnet. It's not just that. That's weird. It's not really the setup. It's a field. There's no pure form of it. It's always relationally constructed through a difference with other poles or positions. It has to be. It's the thing that constitutes it. The intensity of this investment comes from the tension created between these poles. And by this delirium, it's the position of it is not a stable position. It's metastable as a position. And the social field itself is a process of this. This is libidinal investment mapping onto this movement and then being married to the process of class interest or preconscious interest. Delirium invests social becoming. It is inherently an oscillation. So, no, you'll never achieve a schizoid investment simply. You will never achieve a paranoid investment, nor does anyone else. And don't say this. You would just simply ossify fully. Like, what the fuck? Catatonia or ossification. Have fun. No. Oscillation is there to maintain libidinal force, which all of us have. All of us have. Revolutionary strategy is not about eliminating the paranoiac pole. That's not it. You do not eliminate and purify. It is about maintaining dominance of the schizoid pole through oscillation. So, psychiatry, psychoanalysis, tries to eliminate the oscillation. They want a stable ego, a stable patient. They've been making this point along, but again, I'd say psychoanalysis does a very good job to talk about it this way. No. The goal is to work within this oscillation, to understand its productivity, to facilitate schizoid movements, but minimize paranoiac capture. On the political side, they don't state it completely, but you should kind of be putting it together. Revolutionary movements are going to oscillate. You can't stop that. Stop pretending that you want pure. You're fucking up. You are already ossifying yourself. Fuck off. You can't avoid oscillation. The question at hand is whether the schizoid pole remains dominant, whether subject groups continually can reconstitute themselves after being subjugated, which you will be. We all will be. This isn't permanent revolution as like a static state. This is permanent revolution as sustained oscillation, but weighting it to the schizoid pole, not the paranoiac pole. That's how I read this. The next paragraph, I think, gets into it, but I'm not doing that today because this is now hitting a solid 3.5 hours. And that is, did you know that's a lot of Anti-Oedipus? I'm very proud of all you people for sticking with me. I am. I think you guys are I'm stunned that you stuck with me through all of that because that's kind of a long nightmare of everything.
I want to ask 2 general questions.
Please.
Not to do with the last paragraph, but 1, are you planning to include the appendix for designing machines in this reading?
I mean, no, but we will probably do a reading of it afterwards if you want to. Like it's going to be the goal is that we kind of we try to do secondary text every time we kind of every reading tends to spawn a whole bunch of other readings. And that's what the last one did. It spawned just a fuck ton of like Simondon and a bunch of others. Ruyere, eventually me into Klasowski, our Nietzsche readings. This will end up doing that. But a balance sheet for desiring machines is incredibly important. I was debating on also doing Deleuze's Anti-Oedipus lectures because he goes into so much detail. And Purdue has some pretty good translations, not perfect, but pretty good translations of them that I think do a generally pretty nice job.
Okay, I see. And my second question is, because I remember Sunday said something about this in a stream recently. Is it inaccurate to call this Anti-Oedipus? Or is that an acceptable variation of the English name?
I mean, I do not understand what you're saying. Sorry.
No, because I've been calling it Anti-Oedipus for a long time. And then I thought I heard someone say on a stream, this person was President Sunday, that no, that's wrong.
I mean, it's Anti-Oedipus. I don't. Do you mean pronunciation-wise?
Yeah, pronunciation-wise. Like, Anti-Oedipus isn't wrong, exactly. If you say Anti-Oedipus. Okay, if you're not picking up on the difference there, I'm gonna assume that, yes, you can say that, it's fine.
I honest to God, I would just say that if anyone is gonna ever like shit on someone for saying Oedipus instead of Oedipus or Oedipus or whatever, it's like, move on.
Ed and Oedipus.
I'm gonna say Ed and Oedipus. I like that. Thank you, Quat. That's good. Ed and Oedipus.
Yeah, okay, sorry. It's just that got me thinking, like, is the pronunciation of the title that important? But I guess not.
I don't think so. I don't know. It's like in the UK. I've heard because we have a bunch of the Brits here, and they tend to say Oedipus. In the US, I know we say Oedipus. Oedipus is like, it's, I don't care. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters at all.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, clearly, like, the distinction between Oedipus doesn't even occur to you. So I assume then that I can keep saying Oedipus and no one is going to get mad.
No, I don't. We don't do that. Of course, Sunday does. So be careful speaking around him. That's a joke. That's terrible. I shouldn't say that. You're just being a dick. But it's like,
no, I mean, like I said, he was the reason I even asked this question.
Well, this was we had this long ago discussion because we are the king of pedants. This server is filled with them. But like in ancient Greek, we don't know, first off, if they really emphasized different vowels differently. I think the understanding generally is that they didn't have long or short vowels like we do, where it's like e or e. So there's no difference in the original Greeks. Who gives a fuck? Like who gives a shit? I think was the end result. No one cares.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
So, but all right. Let's see. Where do I send people? Oh, that's easy. I'm going to send you over to no, Siri, fuck off. This has been lovely. If you like what I do, support it. Always subscriptions are lovely. Don't forget to subscribe, all that fun stuff. I've got videos finally coming out again. I'm looking at a few of them. AI art piece, thanks to someone demanding that I go about that because it was fair. And then I have a piece on one of the things you'll notice a few times in the reading, I got a little stalled in my own brain. I've been going into gamma scalping, which is a mechanism in the world of trading that I've I'm not a business degree guy, but if you are, the nature of delta hedging and how it works inside of markets and bonds and stocks is a thing that has been foreign to me for a long time. As I've been diving down that road and I got to gamma trading, it has been horrifying to me how absolutely spot on a few of the things in this book are. So I've got a video on gamma trading and the nature of capitalism as well. So I got a few things, which is always great. The other way to support is you can head into Discord, discord.gg/DGQC, or you can head to Patreon, patreon.com/DGQC, and drop $5 a month. Stability there means I can do this much more often without having to be a nervous, paranoiac wreck. For now, I'm going to send YouTube off to a friend. Give Rezi all my love. And with that, I will just say thank you all, and I'll see you all